meeting has been publicly noticed. Verification of a quorum. We have all 7 members in attendance this evening. Would someone like to be able to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Dr. Vito, I'll motion to approve the agenda as presented.
All right, thank you very much, Nicole. Motion has been made. Do we have a second?
Dr. Vito, second.
Thank you very much, Ms. Peterson. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion on the agenda before we go to the vote? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor with raised hand and or aye. All right, motion carries unanimously 7-0. All right, let's go on to our mission statement. Together with our families and community, we will inspire students to be passionate learners, creative thinkers, and innovative leaders who enrich our world. All right, let's go on now to our item number 2. Hold on one second, please. Oh, and then, just for a quick FYI for everyone, tonight we do have public comments. Ms. Lisa Zielinski will be monitoring the chat function for community comments. Remember, those are community comments, not questions, ladies and gentlemen. So if you have a comment, please put that into the chat. Also, please have your microphones on mute unless you have a speaking session that you need to be able to do within there, so that way we can stop some of, so that way we won't have some of the back noise and some of those other different things that, so that way we'll be fine and good to go with that. All right. So now let's go next to our district showcase. Dr. Kelsey Brown.
Good evening, board members and community members. Thank you for joining us this evening. It brings me great pleasure to recognize this evening 3 teams or individuals who are doing amazing work in the school district, or representing the school district, I would say. First, I would like to recognize our middle school forensics team. It is my understanding it has been quite a long time since our middle school forensic team has had an opportunity to go upstate. And so tonight, I would like to acknowledge and recognize our middle school forensics team led by Mrs. Dolores Brown, who is on with us this evening. This team of 9th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders all qualified for state in their individual categories. This team worked extremely hard, and it is my pleasure to congratulate you on your success throughout the season. I'd like to recognize the categories they participated in. The first category is for Farrago. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. If I'm not, students who are on, please feel free to correct me. The challenge of Farrago is to select material from a variety of literary genres: poetry, short stories, speeches, essays, drama, and/or novels. This addresses a central specific theme or emotion, and the students are asked to interpret the material through oral presentation. This is not an interpretive category, nor is it an acting category. The 2 students who are representing us in this category are Shuana Zhang and Gregory Perry. And I believe at least one of them is on with us tonight. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Would you like to say a few words regarding the category you participated in?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Greg and Shuana are both on. Yeah.
Okay. Greg, would you like to say anything this evening?
Greg, what were your pieces? I was just going to ask you, Greg, what were your pieces? Yeah.
A 2014 news interview, a poetry about basketball, and another one about basketball. And that's it.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about your experience. So as you chose those topics, what did that mean for you as you were performing?
It meant me because I really like sports, and if I get engaged more with sports, helps me and help me grow, so I can be a really great sports player by learning about.
Okay, thank you, Gregory. In the next category, and I'll also, Ms. Brown, I'll let you wrap it up by saying a few words as well, okay? Because we thank you for your leadership. The next category is group acting. We have Leah Mays, Joanna Blask, and Maya Donald. Are any one of three of those students on this evening with us? I see Maya. Maya, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. So, we're doing a skit that is basically, I guess it's supposed to be like a funny play, on sexual abuse. So it's like trying to make that topic a little lighter in a way, and easier to talk about. We chose it kind of at the last minute because we didn't know what we were going to do for the last until the last minute. And we chose it because the three different characters were really represented something that would be easy for each of us to play. So yeah, it's like a court scene.
Okay, thank you. Any other students on in the group acting category? We don't want to miss anyone. Okay, now in the group improv category, we have Ida Miel Awa Agani, Leslie Acklemore, and Victor Isaka. Are any of you on this evening? I see Victor.
Yeah.
Victor, would you like to say a few words for us?
Sure. So what do you want me to say?
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience? And why did you choose to be in the group improv category?
Well, we kind of chose it because we all really like improv and we wanted to experiment with the category. So we've done it before in 6th grade and we came back this year. And it's really different, but I guess we kind of like it really more than when we were in 6th grade.
So it sounds like as you transition from one grade level to the next, you like it improv even more and more. Is that a good summation?
Yeah, pretty much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any of our other two students, would you like to say anything? All right.
Edie, are you good, honey? Or you don't want to share? No?
I mean, I'm here.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about what the performance was like, to give it in front of the judges and everything like that? Or have you done this before?
Yeah, we did it in 6th grade. Like me, Leslie, and Victor did it in 6th grade. And it was kind of, we were nervous at first, but then as you keep doing it, you kind of get used to it. And I'm happy that we actually get to go to state, because last year, I mean, in 6th grade, we were going to go to state, but then COVID happened. So they canceled it. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Awesome, amazing. All right. And then finally, we have persuasive speech, and Nora McCullough. I see Nora on. Nora, would you like to say a few words about your experience?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Miss Brown and Miss Albers for all their help, and to thank the BMS staff for being so supportive. And I do persuasive speech. So my speech is on the benefits of playing an instrument. I mention all the instruments and what they do for your brain, how they help you with stress and patience, and how they build your confidence.
Awesome. Thank you, Nora. Thank you very much. Before we go any further, I'd also like to thank Mr. Gerald McGregory, who, as many of you know, when Gerald came into the school district, he was the high school athletic director, and his position has been expanded to the K-12 activities and athletic director. So Mr. McGregory, thank you for your leadership. And Ms. Brown, thank you for your leadership, for pouring into our students. And Dolores, I see you on here somewhere. Would you like to say a few words?
Sure. I'm really, really proud of the team. Thank you, Dr. Kelsey Brown, and thank you, Mr. McGregory, and to Kathy Anwar, who's just a superstar in helping with everything to get us places and get us set up. The kids worked really, really hard. They're all very modest just now when they were speaking, but they put a lot of passion and energy into their pieces, and they're very brave and vulnerable with each other. Like, they're really a team. They support each other immensely, and they take risk in front of each other. And I think that's why so early in the season, they've all qualified for state, is because individually and as a team, they just gelled and worked together and really are presenting the best image of Brown Deer that you could want when we go out to other schools. So I thank them most of all for just being wonderful kids and for doing their best work and letting me keep them together as a unit.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. And just a reminder to the board, when I first became superintendent, Dolores was my first hire, actually, or our first hire as a librarian. And she certainly has been an asset to the school district, doing great things and great work for our students. So Dolores, thank you so much. We acknowledge your leadership and our students' leadership, as we know they will continue to go on and be great. So thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. Round of applause for the forensics team.
Excellent job, ladies and gentlemen. Excellent job. Excellent job. Way to represent Brown Deer.
Thank you. Next we have, and I'm not sure that I see him on this evening, but we do have one of our students who is a National Merit finalist. So join us in celebrating Mr. Nathan Tock. The National Merit Scholarship Program is an annual academic competition for recognition and scholarships beginning in 1955. Back in September, Nathan Tock was recognized as part of a nationwide pool of semifinalists representing fewer than 1% of US high school seniors, and was chosen as a finalist based on his exemplary academic record, ACT score, an essay, and counselor recommendation. Congratulations to Nathan and good luck in the finalist process.
Dr. Kelsey Brown, he's actually on here. I'm here under my mom's name, P.
All right, Nathan, all right. Would you,
hello.
Congratulations, Nathan. We'd love to hear from you.
Well, thank you.
I'd like to hear from you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, just to start with this, I'd like to thank the school board for helping me and just the district in general, especially my teachers. And I'd also like to thank my parents for helping motivate me to get all the way here.
Mrs. Nelson. Mrs.
Yeah,
Wyatt.
I really appreciate all that.
All
I
right.
couldn't have done it without all you. Yeah.
Thank you,
And
Nathan.
I
go
know
ahead.
this isn't Nathan, but we appreciate all the support for subject level acceleration, like Mrs. The principal, Courtney Brown, Dr. or Mrs. Brown,
Miss
and
Brown,
then yeah, and Mrs. Shimmons, and walking Nathan back and forth, but being able to do subject level acceleration in order to keep the social, be able to be with his peers and finish out high school, not unlike other students, but I mean, it's been a really awesome opportunity and very beneficial to him and helped him to get to this place.
I
Thank
have
you.
I have the pleasure of hanging out with Nathan all afternoon. I'm in the library and he's an absolute gentleman, but just the best of what Brown Deer has to offer. So congratulations. It's no small feat, sir. So well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, can I say what I have to say? Because
This is his brother
I've
Ethan
seen
here.
Nathan work really hard. Even being in like AP stats and stuff, I don't get any of what he's doing. He's doing stuff with like capital pi and U's and upside down U's and a bunch of symbols that I don't understand. It's all like set theory, but it's not sets, it's actually classes. It's a whole bunch of stuff. And the fact that he can fit it in this head is pretty crazy.
Yeah, tiny head.
Like my friends are astounded at like my AP stats knowledge. I feel like my friends when I look at his papers.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's really good at what he does. So
Thank
I
you.
think he definitely deserves his honor.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank
let's
you,
give
Ethan.
Mr. Talk a round of applause.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. And thank you to the family for continuing to entrust us to do our best work for all of our students. So thank you all so much. And congratulations again, Mr. Talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. And then finally, we have one of our Brown Deer graduates, Brown Deer class of 2013. We have Mr. Trayvon Palmer, I'm sorry, Palmer. Yep, I'm sorry. It's Trayvon Palmer on with us this evening. Trayvon has had significant success in playing basketball at the next level. Trayvon Palmer plays for the Detroit Pistons G League team, the Motor City Cruise. He recently received his first NBA minutes with the Detroit Pistons when he signed a 10-day contract at the end of December. Palmer will be playing against the Wisconsin Herd, the G League team of the Milwaukee Bucks in Oshkosh on tomorrow, in fact, at 7 p.m. And if any of you are interested in attending the game, tickets are on sale for at the Wisconsin Herd website or on the Brown Deer Facebook page. We wanted to take an opportunity to recognize one of our outstanding alum as he continues to go on and be his best self and do great work in the athletic category. And so, Mr. Palmer, I have never met you as the new superintendent, but we are so proud of you. Thank you for joining us this evening. And we would also like to provide an opportunity for you to say a few words as well.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, what's up, Trey?
Yes.
Man, how you doing, man? It's a pleasure to meet you as well. I haven't got a chance to meet you, but it's a pleasure to finally get to meet you. We actually just landed here in Appleton, so just kind of getting settled into the hotel. But man, it's a great honor to be mentioned and recognized by the high school, man. It's nothing I take lightly, something I'm very proud of, and just to be able to kind of be an example for people who want to kind of pursue that same path, man, and kind of fight through adversity and kind of continue to just strive for their dreams, man. So I'm proud that I could do that for not only myself, but for my school, my family, friends, and anybody else who's kind of going along that same journey. So I thank you all for recognizing me. I haven't got to meet everybody in here, but I do say a couple familiar names. But again, man, I just want to thank you. It's a big honor.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer, for joining us. We are proud of you, and you as well continue to go out and be great as you represent the school district of Brown Deer. Round of applause, everyone, for Mr. Palmer.
Hey,
Thank
Trey,
you.
I still think I
Appreciate
can take you to the 3-point contest in your
Man,
backyard.
it's gonna be a long day. It's gonna be a long day.
All right, Trey. Thank you so much.
Man,
Thank
you all.
you.
Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. And then let's not forget to just wish good luck to our Brown Deer Middle School forensics team as they go upstate. You guys continue to be amazing and good luck. And Dr. Beadle, that ends the district showcase for this evening.
Wow. Well, I think we just had one of our best at all time best district showcases from our young people for forensics, national merit. We got an NBA hooper from Brown Deer, just all of these different things and stuff. That's just really just lets us know the Brown Deer way, being Brown Deer strong, we create those leaders. And when you really think about what our mission says, again, together with our families and community, We will inspire students to be passionate learners, creative thinkers, and innovative leaders who enrich our world. And today, I think that our showcase exemplifies just that. So thank you very much. All right. So Dr. Kelsey Brown, let's go to the district administrator's report.
Yes, just to share some highlights of what I have been working on or in the process of doing. Real quickly, of course, the team and I, we are planning for next year for the 2022-23 academic school year. I want to give a great big shout out to Miss Trina Jackson under her leadership in terms of the heavy lifting that took place in order to hire staff. As we know, we were part of the Great Resignation as well. And so we needed to make a concerted effort to do some recruiting and hiring for teachers to work in our building. So thank you, Miss Jackson, for your heavy lifting in that area. Continuing to be visible in our buildings as much as possible to support our administrators as well as our teachers. We had parent-teacher conferences last week. I was able to, I was at the middle high school for the most part, and it was great to see our parents back in our buildings and just being excited about being able to meet teachers and understand how their students are performing. I attended the Rotary meeting on Monday of last week, also attended Once Upon a Mattress. Great big shout out to all of the staff members who pulled off such an amazing play. Our students did an awesome job and it was well attended. Curriculum meeting with Dr. Garrison, alternative site meeting with Ms. Antandari. We're also preparing for the board retreat taking place this Saturday from 9 to noon in the middle school commons. We continue to have discussions around COVID-19. The numbers are low and are moving in the right direction. So let me say the numbers are promising at this point. So we are experiencing minimal quarantines and contact tracing has diminished significantly. So that's very promising for us. We will continue to meet as a team and decide and understand what our mitigation protocols will look like moving forward. We will bring that to the special board information to the special board meeting recommendations in March. I was also able to attend the vaccination clinic that we hosted in early February, second Saturday in February. This is our partnership with Health Connections. We were supported by our own staff members. Great big shout out to Sharonda Farrington for leading this initiative. We were also supported by spouses of staff members. The U.S. Army joined us for support and also Children's Hospital. On that second Saturday, there were 99 people who took advantage of the vaccination clinic. And just a FYI to our community, moving forward, we will host a vaccination clinic on the second Saturday of every month leading up to May from 10 to 2 in the Deb Kerr Community Room at the elementary school. And that ends really a portion of my district administrator's report. There is more, but I will let it land right there. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
All right. Thank you. All right. So can we go, our next topic is up to our principal updates. So whichever order Dr. Kelsey Brown or Dr. Garrison you would like for the principals to go.
Yes, tonight, Dr. Beta, we will only have Mr. Griffin, we will have Mr. Griffin and Ms. Pitchford because Ms. Brown, she provided a report at the meeting earlier at the second Tuesday meeting. So it will be Ms. Pitchford and Mr. Griffin tonight.
All right,
okay, so Mr. Griffin, take it away.
Good evening, Board of Education. For staffing updates, I want to give a personal shout out to the assistant principal, Jason Love, for leading the efforts to diversify our staff this year. We know that we've had some hiccups in our hiring, some setbacks in our hiring process, but overall, one of our goals was to make sure that our staff became more diverse this year, and we've been able to accomplish that goal. We're still looking for a building sub, educational assistants, and as Dr. Kelsey Brown stated, we're proactively starting to plan for next year by just starting to look at what our teams are going to consist of. When it comes to meeting updates, we now have PLCs that happen twice a week at our school. And one of the reasons for that is when we looked at our collaborative times to guarantee student learning, we realized that the time was only about 20%. So we wanted to up that. So now it's up to 40%. Thank you to the instructional coaches for leading our PLCs. For the culture part, PPG, School Culture and Book Study, has already has gotten underway. We're looking at trauma because we do know in the midst of COVID, additional traumas have been hit at our school. And in addition to that, we have once a month Brown Deer Way meetings where we look at our school data to make informed decision. And then finally, in our academic piece led by our coaches, we are looking at every grade level team had 3 standards that they had to select from to guarantee student learning. We know educators are going to teach all the time, but we really want to guarantee student learning and use our analyzing student work tool that we referenced a few months ago. We unpack standards, we look at rubric creation, student data analysis, and feedback cycles. We're also doing a report card analysis to make sure that our reporting is aligned with our instructional practices. Sarah Halverson and the team of educators are leading that as well. And we look forward to hopefully presenting a proposal to Dr. Brown, Dr. Garrison, and the board in the very near future about reporting practices at the elementary school.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Any questions for Mr. Griffin from the board? All right. Thank you very much. And next up, we have Ms. Pitchford. Good evening, Ms. Pitchford.
Good evening, everyone. These are your Brown Deer Middle School updates. As far as staffing, our new staff members, they have been making a great adjustment to being in our building. They've been a great asset just to helping us fill those roles. We are still in need of a Spanish teacher and a STEM teacher for this school year. As far as meeting updates, with our instructional teams and PLCs, our focus is really on our priority standards and assessments. So our staff can really learn to better use our data that we're collecting to inform our instruction, including identifying the what mastery of priority standards looks like and determining specific needs of students. So teachers are able to reteach, provide additional support as necessary. Our SST grade level meetings continue to happen as well on a biweekly basis. That's specifically around our social and emotional supports. We've been able to gather from those specific needs that students may have, and home visits have been conducted. We're continuing to provide and refine our check-in and check-out process and procedures. We've found some success with having some in-person family meetings just to bring all stakeholders to the table together to really support the whole child. As far as SEL and culture, we're continuing with our SEL and restorative practices, really trying to focus on the reinforcement of positive behaviors, holding students accountable, but also providing those restorative meetings and circles to allow students to own things that they may have done and what they can do better moving forward. So they're really learning from their mistakes that they made. Our Pbis Incentives, our last one was on February 17th, which was a pajama jam. We had about 295 students who were able to attend that event. Students will be having a big part in choosing our upcoming incentive activities. We'll be sending out surveys to students so we can get their input. And we are in the midst of planning our Math Spirit Week just to continue to celebrate our learning in the math area. In academics, we are closing out our final week with, last week we had our Reading Spirit Week, and Battle of the Books is taking place this week. So we're super excited about that with our students and our staff members who will be participating. And we're continuing with our forward testing planning. 8th grade will begin forward testing in science and social studies the week of March 21st, and the rest of our forward testing will be completed after spring break during the weeks of April 11th and April 18th. We'll be conducting makeup testing on an ongoing basis on Mondays and Fridays throughout the testing window. So those are our middle school updates.
Any questions for Ms. Pitchford?
All right, board members, any questions for either one of our principals at this time? Only thing I want to say is excellent job, both of our administrative team, our principals in the building. Wonderful job during this time. Thank you so much for the updates, and let's keep up the good work and tell your staff that we say, you know what, thank you and kudos so much for everything that you do for our students and for our families in the district. All right. All right, we're going on to our public comments section. Ms. Zielinski has been monitoring the chat. Ms. Zielinski, do we have anyone that has a public comment at this time?
No, there isn't.
All right, what we will do is we'll give it as usual. We'll give it another minute to see if there was any of our families or any of our community members that had a comment that they would like to make at that time. Anything, Lisa?
No, there's none this evening. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Well, let's move forward to our consent agenda. Would someone like to be able to make a motion?
Dr. Beadle, this is Felida Daniels Ashley, and I would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, including the minutes of the January 11th, 2022 special board meeting, the minutes of the January 25th, 2022 regular board meeting, the February 22nd, 2022 school safety drill update, and the schedule of voucher payments via ACH and wire transfers in the amount of $952,406.59 in the general checking account and the food service account, including funds 10, 21, 27, 39, 47, 49, 50, 72, and 80.
All right. We have a motion has been made. Do we have a second?
I will second.
All right, is that Dorothea?
Yes.
All right, motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor with raised hand and or aye. All right, motion carries unanimously 7-0. All right, let's go on to our item. Let's see, do we need to do the safety drill update with Jody?
So really the only purpose of this agenda item, Dr. Beadle, is for the board to approve the safety drills that we conducted over the last 30 days. So you have the memo. If we can just get a motion to approve those drills and then a second on that motion, then we'll be in compliance.
We did.
That was just part of what we just did. That's part of our 4A.
You're good then.
Yep, they were
that's
good.
it.
I didn't know if you had something that you wanted to turn around and let us know.
Nope,
Since we just approved it. Okay, thank you, Jody. All right, let's go on to our item number 5, item for discussion, consideration, and possible board action. Approval of new hires. Mr. Clement.
Good evening, everyone. We have 2 new hires this evening. As Dr. Brown mentioned, we are furiously working through trying to fill the last remaining positions. Tonight we have in front of you Caitlin Norris, who will become the new elementary school gifted and talented teacher. And then we also have James Rossetti, who's being hired as a high school teacher.
All right. Would someone like to make a motion to approve? Now, again, these are 2 separate ones. All right, would someone like to make a motion to approve the hiring of Caitlin Norris?
Yes, Dr. Beadle, I'd like to make a motion to approve the hiring of Caitlin Norris as an elementary school gifted and talented teacher for the 2021-2022 school year.
All right, a motion has been made. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Dr. Beadle.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Motion has been made and seconded. Any conversation? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor with raised hand and or aye. All right, motion carries unanimously 7-0 for the hiring of Caitlin Norris. Next, would someone like to make a motion for the hiring of James Rossetti?
Dr. Beadle, I'd like to make a motion to approve the hiring of James Rossetti as a high school teacher for the 2021-2022 school year.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Peterson. The motion has been made. Do we have a second?
I will second
I'll
that.
second the motion.
Okay, I think, I don't know, Dorinthia, were you first? Oh, the square lights up or whatever and stuff, so I go like try to run. So Dorinthia, so I'll take you as the second. Any other discussion? All in favor with raised hand and or aye? All right, motion carries unanimously 7-0. Off topic. Does anybody remember that one show or whatever have you where you had to hit the thing first and then it light up first and whoever did it? What's the name of that game show?
Pick one.
Huh?
Pick one. I think
Isn't that Hollywood Squares?
Yeah, where the
Press
thing
Your
lights
Luck.
up. One of them that lights
Hollywood
up, the square lights
Squares.
up.
Hollywood Squares, I believe. My
Okay,
grandmother
Hollywood
was a
Squares.
fan.
Okay, so
Yes.
you know what? That's what we got going on here. So when someone gets ready to make a motion, I'll try to second. I can't see who's doing it. I just see the square light up. So that's what I go off of and stuff. So there
Sounds
we go.
like we need a judge then.
Hey, let's do it. That sounds good. All right, well, you know what? Let's welcome Caitlin and James to the Brown Deer family. Thank you so much for coming on board with us, and we're expecting wonderful things for you with for our students and our families. So thank you very much. All right, let's go on to our next item, approval of any resignations, Mr. Clement.
We have no resignations this evening.
Ooh, I'll take it. I'll take it. Life is getting good. All right. All right, and let's go on to our next one, approval of any retirements.
It is with a bit of sadness tonight that I do bring to you the name of a new retiree, Holly Warren Renault, who has served a number of capacities over the years, but has most recently been serving as the district literacy coordinator. She's been with the district since 1998. And is finishing up an illustrious career with us this June. She is on the line, so I'd like to give Ms. Holly Warren Renault a chance to say a few words if she would like to before we go through a motion.
Thank you. And that's really what I want to say is thank you. It has been totally my pleasure to work with wonderful students and families in Brown Deer. And the pleasure has been all mine. I do look forward to the next stage of my life, but I do thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Holly, for those words. So yeah, we hate it when we have a teacher that has been with us for 98. Do the math, carry the 2. No, I'm just playing. But we turn around and we look at all of those years of education
No,
with
don't
our
do the
family.
math.
And you know, a teacher that has been with us for so many years and being able to do that, you know, thank you, appreciate you. We even hate to even make this motion. I'm quite sure someone else would like to be able to make a comment in relationship to this resignation before we go to vote, or not go in the vote, Holly, and say that you can't go.
Dr. Brown, let me jump in first, and you can jump in right after me if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
You know, Holly, let me first say, when I came to Brown Deer, you know, you came in, you rolled up your sleeves and started working right with me right away, and I appreciate the camaraderie that you've given me, our weekly meetings, you dealing with some of my A-type behaviors. I'm just joking, but overall, again, thank you so much for all the hard work that you've done for the Brown Deer School District. I know that we say that a lot, but to truly thank you so much for welcoming me to the Brown Deer School District, as well as all of the work that you've done over the many years. It goes without saying that sometimes people forget like all of what you've done over your course of your career. But I can personally thank you for all the help that you've given me around the Calkins work this year and into this last year, looking at the science of reading opportunities, looking at some of our interventions for our reading programs. Again, thank you for those opportunities that you've allowed me to work with you in. So again, thank you so much for your years of dedication to the Brown Deer School District.
Thank you, Dr. Garrison. And Holly, I will not shed a tear. I'm gonna hold my tears back. It has just been a wonderful relationship. Same as Dr. Garrison, when I came to the district, you embraced me as the curriculum director, and we did some great work. One of the things that I just want everyone to know about you is that you truly are an expert in the area of literacy. You know what needs to happen in classrooms. You are adamant about staying close to children and understanding how they learn to read. And we want you to know that if you ever want to come back and tutor some of our students, you know, or help out, like that is not off the table. But what I also want to say is I wish you the very best in your next life, whatever that looks like. Now Brenda's gone and now you're gone. And our little trifecta is now going away. So just really quickly, everyone, Brenda's birthday was September 25th. My birthday was October 25th, and Holly's was December 25th. So that's kind of our little our little way of being a team. And so I am going to miss you greatly, but you know that you always have a home here in the school district of Brown Deer. And if nothing else, please come back and visit us. And we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. And the district is in good hands with both Dr. Brown and Dr. Garrison. Thank you.
All right. All right. Well, would someone like to make a motion?
Dr. Beto, I'd like to make a motion to approve the retirement of Holly Warren Renault as a district literacy coordinator effective June 6, 2022.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Dr. Beto, I'll second.
Thank you very much, Ms. Peterson. Motion has been made and seconded. Any other conversation before we go to vote? All right, hearing and seeing none. All in favor with raised hand and/or aye. All right, motion carries unanimously 7-0. Holly, best wishes from the board on your next endeavors. Again, once a Falcon, always a Falcon. Please come back. And I know you'll have that itch come back to you sometime next year. So come on back in and come and volunteer and come on back home. So thank you very much, Holly. All right. Let's go on to our next item, which is our business office update. Mr. Clemming.
Yeah, so we're just going to move through the list of sub-agenda items there. So our first one, per request from the board, is to take a look at our teacher retention data over the last few years. And so for that, I'm going to share my screen and introduce Trina Jackson. Oh, looks like now I'm not able to share my screen, even though it said I could before.
Dr. Garrison, can you make Kevin a co-host? You can take it away from me and give it. There we go. You have it now, Kevin.
Okay, great. Thank you. Oh, there we go. And I will share my screen and introduce Trina Jackson, who is our human resources manager, to discuss the data that we collected. So I'll let Trina take over.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, tonight I am going to be presenting a 3-year teacher retention data analysis. Next screen, Kevin. All right, as you can see on this spreadsheet, we have 86.9% retention rate in 2019-2020 school year that for pre-September 1 of the school term. And during the school year, it was a 100% retention rate. Keeping in mind in 2019-2020, the middle and high school numbers are combined. And my assumption is that is when the merge occurred. Next. All right, so the retention rate for 2020-21 school year is 86.4%, and that is prior to September 1st school term, with a 97.0% retention rate during the school term year. Next. All right. And so for the 2021-22 school year, this graph shows an 81.8% retention rate prior to 9/1 school term. And it also shows that we had a 90.5% retention rate during the course of the school year of 21-22 school year. All right, and this graph is just clearly displaying that 2019-2020 school year did have a 100% retention rate versus the other two following years. All right. So according to the Wisconsin Association of School District Administrations, school staffing issues, including fewer applicants for positions, high turnover, and shortages in a variety of disciplines, are occurring in Wisconsin and across the country. With fewer new teachers entering the profession and increasing teacher turnover, education leaders are looking for new approaches to deal with these changing workforce dynamics and ensure all children have access to the high quality educators they deserve and an equitable education program. For more information, you can click on the link at www.wasda.org/page/staffing challenges. So starting July 1st of 2021, Surveymonkey online surveys were implemented as a questionnaire conducted at the time of an employee's resignation, and it's used to identify factors behind an employee's decision to leave. So not all employees responded to the survey request. We only received 13 responses since July. Now that is just only because that this is a new system that has been implemented. It's an electronic exit interview surveys. It's a new process implemented for retention tracking purposes that offers real-time feedback for talent management, reviews, and is used for quality control and employee retention tool. And here are just some of the responses, but not all of the responses, and the feedback during exit interviews electronically used through Surveymonkey. I'll just read through just a few of them, but not all of them. The first is, quote unquote, another employment opportunity for one of the separated teachers. The next one is a quote, I needed a change, work-life balance. I felt like I was no longer in the driver's seat of my career path. My assignment was based on where they needed me and not reflective of my professional strengths or goals. Next feedback is personal reasons and a shorter commute. Sorry. All right. Another feedback from one of the separated teachers is this was a missed opportunity for personal and professional growth, lack of work-life balance, frustration with lack of communication from building administration, frustration with lack of district support, curriculum guidance, planning. Content area was intentionally excluded from PLCs. Additional feedback states that there were new challenges and to keep improving my skills is the reason why this employee decided to separate. The next quote, I was stressed and overwhelmed and no assistance. Low pay rate, no increase over 4 years. My spouse's job was relocated to another state. For the 2022-23, we have retention strategies, and I'll just name a few of those. One of the retention strategies is there are talks of shorter teacher workday and proposed for 2022-23 school calendar. Strengthening the recruitment and hiring process, provide retention surveys throughout the school year to address issues, provide additional leadership opportunities for the staff, and reviewing additional recruitment and retention efforts. This graph will show you that the teacher demographic teaching pool has increased from 2019 through 2021-22. The increase of the demographic data is stronger in the African-American pool. From 2019 to 2020, it was at 10.2%, and it increased for the 2021-22 school year at 13.1%.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. And Trina, I don't know if you knew your camera was off or not. I don't know if
I did not. I apologize. I am
Okay.
so sorry.
All right. Okay. Thank you. At this time, I would like to introduce Rashida Evans, who is a partner with TNTP, Reimagine Teaching. And we've invited Ms. Evans to join us this evening as she has in her responsibilities with TNTP, she has been engaging in research as it relates to the teacher pipeline. And I asked her if she would give us all some insight into what we are experiencing, because we know it simply is not a Brown Deer issue or concern. It is a nationwide issue and concern that we're dealing with, but she can also share with us some strategies that we could continue to, or that we can think about employing as we move forward to strengthen our teacher pipeline. So Ms. Evans.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Kelsey Brown. I'm so glad to be here with all of you, and it is actually really helpful to go after you, Trina, to be able to hear the context for Brown Deer. So thank you for sharing that exit interview information, because it definitely paints a very consistent picture with what we're seeing everywhere, to be honest, like everywhere, like the words, the terminology, the phrases, all of that is really reflective of what we're seeing around the country. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I know Kevin is sharing right now. Is it okay if I share just a few slides with y'all?
Yes, you can. Let me see if I can turn my, oh, no, I can't. Dr. Garrison, can you turn your hosting
Yes, I'm giving you
rights over?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
You have
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Hopefully you all can see my screen. I'm gonna go into slideshow show mode. And just give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. I'm gonna tell you now the way I have this, I have two screens and I just realized I can no longer see you. So I'm gonna try to, somebody just prompt me and just interrupt if something comes about while I'm talking. My goal here right now is just to give you a few slides that I hope will be helpful to you to start a conversation. There's a ton, we have a ton of data, I'll be honest with you. And so just trying to like shrink it down is tough. But in talking to Dr. Kelsey Brown, one of the things that is clear is that this is consistent everywhere. And that one of the big ideas is that we have to start rethinking what the teaching profession looks like. I'm gonna read you guys a quote from a report that we just released a couple of weeks ago, and I shared it with Dr. Kelsey Brown, and I'm happy to share it with anybody who's on the call. It's on our website, but I can also share it out as well. Here's the quote. "We've known for decades that the combination of low pay, lackluster career growth opportunities, and a job description that borders on impossible, which requires us to meet the wide-ranging needs of an entire class by ourselves, pushes talented people from teaching, a trend that is only accelerating amid the great reshuffle and a lack of investment in accessible, high-quality teacher preparation programs." And so I think this quote is sort of a summary of what we just heard from Trina's presentation about what's happening even at Brown Deer. So just really quick, TNTP is an acronym for the New Teacher Project. We're a national nonprofit founded by teachers. We help schools put all of the elements of great teaching to work in the classroom. That is sort of like the overarching framework of how we were founded. What we do, we work at every level of the public school system to help our partners support and sustain great teaching. So we do policy, we work with districts, and we work with individual schools. We have teacher pipeline programs, leader pipeline programs. We're everywhere where that impacts what happens in the school on a day-to-day basis. So I have a few slides, excuse me, I have a few slides, and I'm not gonna stay on them long because some of them are just too busy, but I kept them in here, not so that you can read them and understand them, but to give you just a quick snapshot of the kind of data that we've been gathering. So here you'll see the slide talks about quartiles. And basically what it looks at is we look at instructional culture overall, and we see the impact that it has on teacher retention, teacher performance, and teacher satisfaction overall. The interesting thing here is that it didn't matter what quartile a school or a district fell into, whether it was a high positive instructional culture or a low instructional culture. The bottom line was that folks were concerned about the workload. If they were at the bottom, like, yes, they were concerned about school culture and environment, but they were still concerned about the workload. And the takeaway from this is kind of like what I heard in the comments, is that we have to start thinking about how we can make this work sustainable for teachers. And that really is where what it boils down to. Here's another slide that's definitely more simplified, but the reality is more and more teachers are thinking about leaving the profession. So these numbers that we see here, this is for 2021. And what I have numbers. So starting in 2019, we have seen this number increase slowly over the last 3 years. And it didn't matter, again, if this was a school that had a really positive instructional culture, or however you guys frame it, school culture or not. The bottom line is that we're seeing an increase in teachers leaving. And of course, this is exacerbated by COVID-19. So in the report that I shared with Dr. Kelsey Brown, again, that we can share with you, we look at a number of things, and some of these things you guys are already thinking about just in listening to Trina's report. This is sort of like big ideas. So I'm giving you big buckets, and nothing about this is going to seem earth-shattering or something that you've never heard before. But in the report, we give you lots of details and strategies for how to dig into this more deeply. This piece, when we think about longer term strategies, there's one piece that stands out, and that is the bottom corner where it says reimagine the teacher role. This is something that we have to do. All of those other things matter, but as we think about the work of teachers, what we know for sure is that we have a number of teachers leaving, thus the name, the Great Reshuffle, or the Great, I can't think of another word, but people are leaving.
Great resignation.
Great resignation, yes, that's what I'm trying to say. So we have the great resignation happening, but to complicate that, we don't have people going into teacher preparation programs for a number of reasons. And so I sent Dr. Kelsey Brown a report about that as well. Our challenge though is that as people are leaving, we don't have people to fill those roles. And it's all the more reason why teacher retention is so important. And it's all the more reason why we have to do what we can to keep teachers in the profession and keep teachers in our schools. So some folks are leaving and they're going to other schools, which is what we heard in the report that Trina shared, but others are leaving the profession completely for the reasons that we've talked about. And a lot of it has to do with work-life balance, and it has to do with like the workload and feeling like they can be successful in the role. All of these things matter, and it doesn't mean that we don't need to create strong culture environments. We absolutely do, but we have to consider how are we gonna hold on to the teachers that we have, and how are we gonna make this work manageable and doable, where people can feel like I can do this work for as long as Ms. Holly has been doing this work. Like we're not getting Ms. Holly's anymore, they're leaving. And so we gotta figure out how we can keep people in this work on behalf of our kids. Like that's the bottom line. So I'm just gonna share one more slide with you just as an example of how we can start to rethink what teaching can look like and what classrooms can look like. So here's an example where we start to think about like, let's change the classroom. And we look at how do we take our best teachers and put them in front of most of the kids. And we restructure a classroom so that maybe they're not just 30 students, there may be 100 students there with multiple teachers, but we know that the quality of instruction is coming from the best possible teacher with the support from other teachers as they build their skills to become better teachers over the year. Again, that reduces some of our challenges that we have with subbing. It reduces some of our challenges we have with teachers needing to feel supported. It takes some of the workload off because everybody's not planning. This is just one example of how we can reimagine what teaching can look like in such a way that we can make this sustainable and still have the promise that we've given to students that if they show up every day, they do what we ask them to do. We have told them for the last gazillion years, if they do this, they will have opportunities. And right now that is not true. And with the way things are going as far as it relates to teaching shortages, that won't be true unless we really can invest in thinking about this work very differently. So I want to open up for questions. I told Dr. Kelsey Brown that I would not talk too long. I hope I did it because I wanted to create a space for you all to have conversations and ask questions if you have them. I won't promise you to have answers for everything. I have some, and I have some resources that I can share, but I can also share some of the things that we're learning from the field if it's helpful in other places outside of Wisconsin. Sometimes I think it's helpful to just hear from folks who are doing something different, who aren't entrenched with us because we can get fresh ideas. Whatever is helpful, I'm happy to do that. But I just wanted to kind of drop those nuggets into the conversation tonight and now open up for questions.
All right. I was going to say, board members, I'm quite sure we've got everyone, we've got a million questions, probably going back to Ms. Jackson's presentation and now to the presentation that we have right now. Board members, questions? And actually, I almost would have liked this potentially to have been part of our board retreat information and stuff to be able to think about potentially some fresh ideas. This actually would have been also been a good topic for our board retreat. But board members, any questions?
So Dr. Beadle, this is Felita, and to your point, this is a lot of information to really kind of dig through. And I am wondering if there is a possibility where we can just do a deep dive into all of the information that's been provided, because I feel like we're not going to do justice in a few minutes that we have left in this board meeting. But I do want to give due diligence to all of the valuable information we were presented with today.
Right. I don't know, board members, questions, Felita, I'm quite sure everybody agrees with what you're saying. Other board members, other questions or potential comments or something that we want to be able to bring this conversation back. Potentially, I don't think we'll have time in our retreat, but maybe this may be something else that we may need to have happen within our work session at the next board meeting or something or whatever. Because like you said, this is a lot of information to try to digest. And I was actually really thinking back about the slides from Trina and looking at the numbers for the teachers, because I was just kind of like, wait a minute, hold on, questions and stuff. And I'm quite sure everybody was probably feeling the same exact way. Board members, questions?
I saw Miss Smith's hand up in her square.
Okay, I can't see anybody because of the side by side.
Oh.
Okay, all right, Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. I think that it is, I agree with that we should do a deep dive, but I do have some questions for Trina. Just, is there, because was the data that you gave us just from the Surveymonkey, not from the data that the examples from the exit interviews? Because if so, I'm wondering if there's a way to pull all of the data, but you said there were only 13 responses for the survey. So if everyone got an exit interview, and even those exit interviews that I'm told were done in person with district staff, those notes, can you go through those notes? Just because I see strategies here, but I want to make sure that our strategies are aligned with our issues, the trends that we're seeing in our data. And I know you went back 3 years, which I guess is fine, but maybe get the data before you started using Surveymonkey, go back to those district administrators that had in-person exit interviews with those people, get those notes just to see if there are any trends in there. Because I see, because one of the strategies I just looked up quickly was shorter workday. We all know as educators, that's really not an incentive for an educator because they take everything home. But if no one in there said, you know what, the workday is too long, then that would not be a strategy that we'd want to employ. So I said that to say that as we look at this, I want to make sure that our strategies are aligned with our issues that come from data, and maybe we need a little bit more data looking back into those face-to-faces, the ones before Surveymonkey that are within that 3-year range that you chosen. That's just my suggestion. But I thank you all. I really like both presentations.
The one piece that I would add is as you're looking at data and making decisions and deciding on whatever strategies you're going to use, that you still keep the end goal in mind, right? So it is possible to do this work and still keep student learning at the center. And I think what we've seen with some districts sometimes is that it can go too far to the left on behalf of teachers, and we sort of lose student learning. And it is possible to do both. And so as you're having your conversations and thinking about your strategies, you may want to have some guiding questions around how is this in service to student learning while also serving the goal of teacher retention.
Agreed. We don't want to end up just being an appeasement. We want the strongest. We want to, before we think about, oh, these are ways to entice people in, we want to make sure that we're keeping the strongest. I like one of your slides talked about the culture you know, you can change the culture so that it is conducive to having that best person in front of the students. I do wonder that, you know, we hang everything on this, the lack of teachers. Do we know in the back of our mind what we will do if we cannot get teachers? I mean, as not with your programming, but as a district, what will we do? We can't, well, I wouldn't say we can't. Do we want to rely on long-term subs? Do we, I mean, if it turns out, you know, there are no teachers anywhere, we need a plan for that. And I'm sure you guys have one, but I just kind of like to think about the end game as far as
that's a great point, Ms. Smith. The other side of the coin is, remember, we are tied to licensing requirements at the state level. And so conversations that I have been having whenever I can get in the room with anyone who would listen is to begin to think about additional levels of flexibility in the licensing requirements, given what we are experiencing at the current time with the teacher pipeline. So that we can keep advocating for that, but ultimately we know that has to come to us at the state level.
I'm glad you're advocating for that, because I think I've mentioned the story before. I've got a coworker I work with at an insurance company who used to be a teacher, and that was one of the reasons he left the profession. License hurdles.
Anita, Ms. Peterson had her hand raised.
Yeah, this question is for Trina, and I know unfortunately we don't have your slides up, Trina, but when you were going through your slides and discussing the retention rates, and you had a column that talked about pre-9/1, I think that's what it was entitled. I didn't quite understand what you meant between the pre-9/1. I mean, I know what that means, but what did it mean in relationship to what you were trying to report? So I'm just wondering if you can expound on the difference between the retention pre-9/1 and then the retention, I'm assuming it was for the whole year. Again, the slides aren't up, so I don't have them before me to distinguish what I mean. So hopefully you know and can relate to what I'm asking.
Yeah, sure. So what that means is that would be the retention rate prior to the beginning of the new school year. And then afterward would be post 9/1 or during the duration of the school term. So that's what that meant.
So when you say, so you're counting or calculating or keeping track of the teachers before they start teaching, is that what that meant?
Those are the teachers that will not be returning as of 9/1.
So Ms. Peterson, after the school year is out, teachers still have an opportunity between June and August to leave our school district, right? Okay. And so between June and the start of the school year, September 1, that's the data we were sharing to help you understand that even after the school year ends, teachers are still leaving us for various reasons. And so we thought it was important to know that there's that lull there sometime where the district is not as active, if you will, as it is now. But teachers are still deciding, really teachers are still looking, right, in between June and August. And while we would, our expectation would be that they would stay, that is not always the case as we traverse June, July, and August leading up to September 1.
Okay, that's great. That leads to a greater understanding. Thank you, Dr. Kelsey Brown. Trina, thank you as well.
Trina, question for you. Was there, and I don't think I saw that or we were going through it so fast. Within there, did we have anything where teachers were leaving after 9/1 through
Yes.
June? Did we have any numbers for that?
Yep, that was on the last column where it says school
term.
So
was that the retention rate thing that you were talking about? You were saying like
yes.
87% of our teachers stayed once after 9/1, 87% of our teachers stayed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. So now that it makes a little bit more sense, because before when I was listening to it, I was like, wait a minute, hold on. I was thinking to myself, like, am I missing something? or whatever. So I couldn't wait to be able to ask that question because I was thinking about those retention rates and trying to figure out exactly where that part was at. Dr. Garrison, you have your hand up.
Yes, I also wanted to just make note that last year what we did, and we were one of the only school districts that did this for the entire school year. I want to note we did have that asynchronous learning day on Wednesday, and from the results that we got back from our staff, that was something that was very I want to say very very positive for us. I think we have to, like I said, when we're thinking about reimagining how we look at teaching the teaching profession and what we can possibly do differently, we know that we probably wouldn't do every single Wednesday, but we can also look at some of the things that we did do last year, just to touch on some of the overwork, the tiredness, and that our teachers may experience through a whole entire school year. One of the things I also wanted to note was that in our survey that we did last year about our calendar and just making sure that we was trying to capture some of those thoughts, it was very clear that now we can actually have asynchronous learning days. And these asynchronous opportunities not only gives our teachers that opportunity to kind of not take everything home with them, but also gives them a chance to kind of catch up and do some different things on those Wednesdays that we provided for them. Now, of course, in all things considered, we weren't able to do that again this year, but I do think that we still need to continuously reimagine how we have this conversation moving forward for any school district, not only Brown Deer, but any school district having a conversation around teacher retention. Because it is true, we don't have the same pool nationally. That's just a fact. We don't have the same pool nationally that we had. And it's going to take a lot of legislative opportunities on top of district level opportunities to change some of those thoughts for different districts placements for their teachers. And so I just want to make sure I noted that we did try to look outside of the box last year as well.
If I can just insert one thought, and again, like we give some guidance for this in the report that we shared, but it's also rethinking how we use people in general. And so, because licensing is real, that is like a real challenge, and not just here, but definitely here, it can be a challenge. But we can think about how we use the bodies that we do have in support of student learning in such a way that it is in service to students, and it also sort of creates some relief for teachers at the same time. So even in your hiring, it may be something to consider. Like the model that I shared with you had a number of adults in the room that were supporting student learning, but those credentials may look a little bit different. So again, to your point, I think Ms. Stacy started out at the very beginning, like you definitely will want to give this thought and planning, but thinking about teaching, but also thinking about the adults that you have and how they can be used in service to student learning.
All right, Kevin had a hand up.
Well, I just wanted to clarify again with Stacy's question. One of the things that we have done this year, especially early on, Dr. Brown and I met with teacher representatives of each of the buildings. And one of the things that didn't come up in exit interviews, but it came up with our current staff, was the length of the workday. And when you compare us to other districts in the area, we have the longest workday. We also have the shortest teacher contracted year. So we're looking at what we can do to balance that out a little bit. And that's one of the conversations we're having. And as we presented a draft calendar to our staff this week to let them kind of see what some things we might be doing. And then we're bringing that to the board in a couple of weeks to have you guys review it as well, just to see if that's part of it. Because we do talk about this work-life balance and trying to give teachers time. That's the big thing that everyone seems to really want, is more time. So that's actually an example of something that came through outside of the exit interview piece, and it's part of our current conversations with staff, again, in the interest of trying to retain the ones that we do have.
Okay. Any other questions from board members?
I have a comment, kind of question. It's good to have this conversation, and also keeping an eye on the current bills that are being proposed by our legislators in terms of impacting our teacher retention within the state. So I guess money plays a part in any of our careers, but do we think that what they're currently proposing may be enough to impact our teachers?
Right now, the legislators are proposing a zero revenue limit increase, as I know it at the moment. And being on the part of the SWSA executive committee and then the meetings, that's what we're hearing at the moment. Now, what we know for sure is Wisconsin is not hurting for dollars. We know that the money is there. I think the concern is around advocacy from all of us at my level. Again, anytime I can get in a room with a legislator and talk about the teacher pipeline, I'm in. I would also suggest, advocacy just from all of our levels, particularly board and superintendent level, to help legislators understand exactly what we're experiencing in our schools, because it's very different than what we've ever experienced before. And so one of the comments that I have made when I'm able to get in that space is, yes, we need the dollars. Yes, we want the dollars. But with the dollars, if we don't have the people, we're still in the same crisis mode that we're in terms of trying to provide a high quality teaching and learning experience for our students. So I make no bones about it. I don't bite my tongue around it because we need human capital is what we need in our classrooms to be able to continue to do our best work for students. So I think that's going to be incumbent upon all of us, Ms. Robinson, to be able to get in those spaces and have those conversations when we can. But again, at the moment, they're proposing a $0 revenue limit increase.
Yeah, so that I know they were discussing as recent as yesterday about increasing the student teacher pay, proposing bonuses for teachers who stay with the district for 5 years, increased starting salaries, which was very vague of the statement. But if those are things that we think will help and that we can support, then I would suggest that we do consider as a board or as a district or individuals within the district, consider writing to our legislators about supporting those things that are being proposed if we think that those are things that could help with our current situation.
Excellent point, Corinthia. Any other board members have any comments and questions? I'm quite sure that we probably have a lot, because that was, like I said before, that was a lot of information to try to digest in this quick moment, especially when we know that this is one of the major topics of discussion for all school districts right now at this time, looking at teacher retention, what the teacher pipeline is going to look like, strategies to be able to keep teachers, teacher pay, and a bunch of other different things. Any other further questions for both of our presenters, or any other questions?
Dr. Beto, I just have a question. When would you like for us to bring this to the forefront again for a deeper discussion?
You know what, actually, and looking at this right now, I wish this could have been part of our board retreat, because I think all of this information right here is so pertinent to what we're doing and the direction we're trying to go. When we start talking about culture, climate, retention, a lot of those different things. But could we, other board members, potentially, do you think that this may be something that could be part of our work session for our next board meeting? Do a little deeper dive into this?
I think it would depend on what else is on the agenda, because if it's something that we truly need to dive into, it may potentially need to be a session of its own.
I know we haven't actually started working on what the agenda potentially could be.
Not yet. For
the upcoming work session, so we haven't done that. Monica, question for you. Could you and I potentially meet to figure out what this next agenda is going to look like? And if we do have it, and if we do have the time, with board members, would you be opposed to us being able to relook at this and revisit this and maybe even look at this information a little bit further and have any questions and go further with this? Yes, no. I saw some head do like this. I said some head do like this, so I don't.
What are you proposing? Dr. Beto?
My proposal is to see if we could turn around and have this discussion and further this discussion at our next board meeting.
Okay, or I
Or
thought you
if it- and if we don't have enough time, depending upon what this next agenda is going to look like, potentially it would have to be part of another board meeting in order for us to be able to look at this information. But we just got to be able to find some time. So I'm going to meet with Monica to look at the next agenda for our next work session and kind of see exactly what that looks like and see if we have a nice little chunk of time to be able to put that in there.
My only issue would be if that would give, I don't know, Trina enough time to prepare the data, to actually go in and pull out those trends, to disaggregate that. If we hop on this and it's the same stuff that we got today, I don't know how because, so I don't know. We still don't know why our people are leaving. I mean, we have 13 people, but it seems like there's more data out there. So if, they can get that, the ones before the Surveymonkey, the ones that were done orally, so that we know where we want to put our strategy efforts, then that would make sense to me.
Well, I think we'll be able to get some of it. I don't know if we'll get everything.
I don't know how quickly. I mean, I'm for the meeting, but if it's, I don't want to come to a meeting and there's no data.
Well, I mean, actually, we can look at the data that we have right now. I mean, to be able to do a deep dive into that or whatever, and being able to look at that.
13 participants.
Hold on, Miss.
I'm sorry, wait, I can't hear. Hold on one sec. I think it's me. One sec.
Yeah, because you're freezing in and out. What I was gonna say is this, Trina, is Trina still on here with us?
Yes, she is.
Okay, Trina, if you could be able to potentially pull some more of that data in relationship to aggregate data from the teachers leaving, our teachers that are staying, any other information that you think that would be relevant to add on to the slides that you have right now, and be able to add that on to Rashida's information. Would that be something you think that you potentially be able to put together within the next week or two?
Yes, I will dive into the archives to pull out, so let me just go here. A lot of the exit interviews were manual prior to the electronic exit interview surveys that I have implemented July 1. So the manual process of exit interviews, I would definitely look into the archives to try to pull that, because it's all manual based, which is one of the reasons why Surveymonkey was implemented, so that it's better tracking for exit interviews. But I can definitely work towards pulling some more data for you. Yes.
Right, and if you can pull that data, and I guess one of the things too is because I know this is going to look, I know you got a million other things that are going on. If you just see like themes of information that happened, like, you had a group that said, they were leaving for this reason or this reason, kind of put those in buckets. You don't have to have each individual person, but if it's, you could be able to put them in buckets to be able to kind of see if we can find a common theme or whatever, that also could work as well. Did that make sense, Trina?
Yes, will do. Thank you. Yep.
Okay. So board members, would you be in agreement to be able for us to be able to do this at a little deeper dive at our next board meeting? And raise hand if you think so. All right, cool. All right, Monica, you and I will have a conversation in relationship to being able to put this next agenda together and make sure that we can have some time to be able to go through this and stuff, because we know this is very important, not only for our administration, not only for our board members, but also for our families that are also on the call as well too, and stuff, because those are a lot of the questions that they have in relationship to our teacher retention and things of that nature and stuff. So thank you very much.
And thank you, Ms. Evans, for joining us this evening. We appreciate you.
One other piece that I will add, as we are collecting data, it may also be helpful to see, like, if we know that teachers leave most often if they are teaching a specific subject matter, that could also be something to take a deeper look at.
Excellent point, Ms. Robinson. Thank you. Trina, did you get it?
I did.
All right, cool. Ms. Peterson?
Yes, and then finally, as Trina is collecting the data, if we can get it out to the board as soon as it is reasonably possible, to give us time to vet it, to read it, and to prepare potential questions. I know that we do get it 2 or 3 days, the Thursday or Friday before the board meeting, but if we can get it as soon as it's possibly ready and sent out, we'll have a little bit more time to take a look at it, to dive into it, and be prepared for the time that we meet to discuss it further.
Yeah, that's where I guess I would just add that I think give us an opportunity to try to locate the data first, because that could, in order to give you enough time to look at it, it might not be in time for the next board meeting, but perhaps the following one. So we can certainly, between Dr. Brown, letting Dr. Beadle know and figure out where it fits in the agenda. But just to make sure that we're able to provide you with the data you're looking for, as opposed to rushing into the next meeting with not the right pieces. So
just don't want to rush into something or whatever have you, because we think that this right here is this is so important to our district and kind of everything else that's going on right now. So as a board, speaking as a board member, I think this is so important that we really need to understand what's going on, and there's some changes that we can make for the betterment of our district. Let's go ahead and just do it. All right. Thank you very much, ladies, for that presentation. Mr. Clinic, let's go on to our treasurer's report for January 2022.
yes, if you have that in front of you, it's a little small to share on the screen, so I'll just kind of walk through it quickly. All three of these next agenda items are related, because how this year ends and how we spend COVID dollars, and then kind of all leads into the budget for next year. So just kind of reviewing where we are. We're trending okay right now, but it is a little challenging to know exactly what's happening, just because of all of the staffing changes that have occurred, and I'll kind of highlight that a little bit. But starting with the Fund 10 revenues, our operating revenues, I just wanted to point out one thing in case you looked at it in panic. 211, our current year property tax, you'll see we haven't identified any activity yet this year. We did actually get we've now gotten 2 tax payments from the village, but how the village works is they look at our overall tax proportion, our proportion of the tax bill, and then whatever receipts they get in a given month, we get that percentage when they give us our payment. So our January 15th payment, which is the only one that would have been reflected here, we actually received $3.2 million from the village, which is lower than we did last year. And that was not quite enough to cover our debt payment. So we just booked all of it into Fund 39. Then this month we received another 5.7 million. So our next statement will reflect, we'll have all of our money in our debt service in Fund 80, and then you'll see some in Fund 10, and the remainder of the tax payments throughout the rest of the year will get credited to Fund 10. So you'll see that fill in to 100% over time. The other kind of nice thing that's occurring is, if you do kind of scroll through the Fund 10 revenues, is that there are a number of line items that don't have budget, and the fact that they do have revenue coming in is a plus. So we are actually, in kind of looking at those numbers, we are currently about $350,000 above in those lines, specifically above what we had budgeted, which is good. Now, a big chunk of that is in line 780, which is the $222,000 from the Evers funding. But we do, continue to see, we expect to see some of these numbers continue to increase. And we know that the vast majority of our big numbers, those will all come in at budget, the ones that are set by the state well in advance. So I'm fairly confident. So that while you look at the total revenue at this point, it looks low, but again, that's because the property taxes haven't been booked. I do think we are trending well revenue-wise on Fund 10. Fund 27, not much to report at this point, only because the only thing that's a little different from previous years is that I did do one claim a little earlier than we did. So line 730 has a little bit more revenue involved. It does look like we're a little bit ahead, but we're expecting that to finish up. And again, the main piece of revenue for Fund 27, which is our special education fund, is a transfer from the operating fund. So the more additional revenue, or the lower our expenses are, that amount of that transfer will get smaller, and then that would allow more money back into Fund 10 to stay into Fund 10. So we'll look at that. Then moving on to Fund 10 expenses. Obviously, the big piece right now is our salary line, which is trending a little bit higher. It's a little misleading from the salary standpoint, just because when we do have teachers leave, Because teachers are paid throughout the entire 12-month calendar from September to August. When they do leave, we do calculate their last day, how much money they have earned, and then their final check is a payout to compensate for the money they had not yet received that they would have received over the summer. And so we have those immediate cash payouts that kind of hit. And so we had a couple of people leave in December and January. And so you're kind of seeing that, and that'll slowly drift back a little bit, at least from the salary line, because we've certainly had openings that have occurred, and we've had some vacancies for a while. But then the question is, when we do hire someone, how does that salary compare to the person? So I'm hoping that as we complete the hiring process now, or get closer to it, that I'll be able to, within a month or two, have a little bit more of a trend to see exactly how those are going. But you're going to see the salary lines a little higher, and then a lot of our ancillary salary lines are a little higher because of either substitutes that we have internally, or additional time that we're compensating teachers to handle preps or overages, things like that. So that's part of that, those numbers being higher than what it has been previously. On the positive side, the benefit line is a little bit lower, and that's the trade-off. While we may have more subs, they're not necessarily on the health insurance. So when teachers leave, so some of that offset of the additional cost of the staffing will get can be offset by a lack of spending in the benefit line. And then in the 300 section in the purchase services, 310 is one of the lines that also includes teachers on call from a subbing standpoint. So we're still doing okay there. We are higher than we were last year overall, but not all of that is due to teachers on call. And we're just watching those lines. They are up overall. That group is up a little bit from last year, but still we think trending okay. And then the rest of the lines are either under or a little bit above, and we're dealing with much smaller increments of numbers. So it's not a huge issue one way or the other. When you look at the total general expense on the bottom of that page, you do see that we are less than a percentage point, about 0.7% ahead of last year. So again, remember that last year we were $1 million under budget. So if we do continue to trend, okay, we still may end up with a surplus, even though we trend a little bit faster. It may not be as high of a surplus as we had, but we're hoping that as things kind of offset and get settled in, we'll have a better sense of where that is. So we are hoping for a surplus to some extent at the end of the year. And then finally, as I talked about, and this is another place where that surplus may exist too, is through our Fund 27 expenses. Even though we greatly increased the budget this year, mostly due to a need of an increase of one-to-one aides, which we were able to hire a bunch, but as aides have been also kind of transitory, they come and go. They're here for a few months and then they find other opportunities. We've had vacancies. We've not been fully staffed in that area. So we are seeing some savings. And if you do note that right now, the salary line is actually lower than it was last year, even with a higher budget. So I'm anticipating that unless something changes dramatically, we will get close to, we'll underspend in Fund 27, which will then lessen that Fund 10 transfer. And then we'll have more money in Fund 10 available to offset those other salary increases that we're dealing with. So when you look at the total Fund 27 expenses at this point, we're 6% down, and we're actually at a number that's lower than we were at this point last year. So there's a lot of moving parts to this, but I feel pretty good that we're heading in the right direction. I'll have a better sense, like I said, in a month or two as the final staffing positions are filled in and we can see how those lines are going. I've also asked our staff to finish up their purchase orders for the year in the next month. So that will at least kind of give us a better sense as well and kind of watch our spending going into the end of the year. So any other questions regarding the treasurer's report? Yes.
Ms. Peterson, go ahead.
Hi, Kevin. Kevin, thank you so very much for the detail and the giving us an understanding line by line on the important features of this budget. I do have a question related to the Fund 10 expenses, line 386 payment to CISA. I'm noticing that And this year to date, this is 7 months ending, 7 months in, right? 7 months ending January 31st, that we've already expensed out $65,000 to a $38,000 budget line. Can you help us understand what's happening there?
Yeah, I think some of that is Title II through either the CISA evaluation process that we're implementing, and some professional development has gone through there. I don't know that it was necessarily budgeted in the right spot. I have to go see where I put it in for Title II, because that's where all of our, and I just did a claim for Title II, which was all CISA, which was $50,000 last week. So that's a good chunk of where that's coming from. And so it is in the budget because we did count the revenue. I'm just not sure. It may not have been put in the right budget line there. So I can verify that. But it's not.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kevin.
Yep.
Outside of that, the budget looks great. And actual looks really good at this point.
Okay. Any other questions?
Board members, other questions for Kevin? Thank you very much, Kev. As always, excellent report and being able to make sure that we are in a very good spot from a financial standpoint and making sure that we're watch out where our pinholes are and where we're able to make sure that we keep our eye on the ball. All right. Kevin, I guess the next one is you as well.
It is me as well. I'm going to share my screen over here just to show the next item. Again, all kind of related is kind of an update on where our COVID-19 relief funds have been spent and allocated thus far. This was something that I had intended to do, but then a member of the public, I think, brought it up at one of our parent meetings to share. So I expedited it and wanted to get it out there for everyone to see. So this is where we're at right now. And again, just as a reminder that the 2020, 2021 numbers, those are actuals. That's what we spent our GEAR and ESSER 1 money on. That was last school year. Then this year with our 21-22, I basically planned on spending all of ESSER 2 for sure. That was a thought. And we have allocated budget lines to a number of different things. You can see them all there. Some of them are dealing with personnel, some of that are purchase services we're doing. And then there are some non-capital objects, the biggest expense being Chromebooks that we purchased earlier this year. And again, we have a little bit of remaining funds yet that we haven't budgeted. And part of my strategy was trying to see, how this year ended. So if we were running into a deficit situation where we would have to support our, regular education in some way, shape, or form, which you can do, because we didn't cut any positions. We added positions this year to make sure we had the people in place to help support our students as they were coming back to 5 days a week in-person instruction. So we knew we didn't know exactly how that was going to shake out. So I wanted to have some pad available. So we do have that currently with the budget. And some of these lines are going to shift a little bit. Just as an example, after school programming, we were closed. The elementary school was closed for a couple of weeks in December. So that, that cost comes down, and the middle school was closed for a couple of weeks, and they've shifted now to 1 day a week as opposed to 2, which I'd budgeted. So some of those costs will come down, and those numbers will change as we get closer to the end of the year. So it'll be kind of a puzzle. We'll decide whether we need to tap into ESSER 3 funding, whether the ESSER 2 funding will be enough, and then whether we're still buying into a surplus to allow us to shift money that we currently have somewhere else. For example, a Fund 46 transfer at some point. I don't want to not use ESSER 2 this year because it only lasts another year, and I want to be able to spend ESSER 3 in a timely fashion as well. So that's kind of where we're leaning towards. So I feel pretty good about where we are right now. And again, as the months go on, we haven't, again, with all the federal money, it's a claim-based system. So it isn't as though the federal government wrote us a check for $800,000. They've allotted it to us. We have to submit a budget through DPI. DPI has to approve it. And then as the expenses come through, I can claim those expenses. So especially in the personnel lines, I can only claim up to a certain point. So my last claim I did as of December. In March, I'll do another claim for the next quarter. And so we can only bring in the money so fast based on our actual expenditures. When you buy Chromebooks at the beginning of the year, you can do that right away. But some of these other pieces require us to actually spend the dollars first and then get reimbursed. So we're working through that. And then again, the ESSER 3 funding, where we have a $1.9 million allotment for that could be used over the next 2 years. I just wanted to remind everybody that there is that 20% requirement for learning loss. So I have that set aside at the top just to remind us that we do have to spend that on something, and it'll probably be something new. And we're having those conversations as to what that is to make sure that we're investing either in curriculum or professional development to help directly address the students' learning loss during the pandemic. So were there any questions about anything specific about the budget? You'll see these are very similar to the numbers that we had discussed in the items that I brought to you when you had the budget approved in October.
Board members, questions for Kevin in relationship to this COVID-19 relief?
Just one other, I have a quick question. Maybe it's just a point of clarification in terms of how you use those ESSER dollars. Is it just for the whole learning loss around curriculum and professional development, or can you use it for things like staffing? Because we were talking about maybe placing some additional dollars into staffing and kind of relieving some of the burden of our teachers. Yeah, just trying to get a sense as to how you can use those ESSER dollars.
It's actually pretty open. I mean, there are a lot of districts who saw declining enrollment and we're seeing lower revenue. They're using it to backfill their budgets in some cases. So you could say, you can put, I'm going to take second grade and put second grade in to pay for them that way to help offset the fact that the state did not provide any additional revenue. So other than that 20% set aside that is specifically detailed in the ESSER 3 piece, which does have to be specifically for learning loss. And it's also evidence-based. So it's very, we can't just say this particular teacher is addressing learning loss. It has to be based on a strategy that the DPI has approved, or we have to go through a really major vetting process. So one of the things you heard Dr. Brown, I think, mentioned before, is the science of reading. That might be a piece we're talking about implementing, and that would be one way of paying for it and supporting it. And that would be one of our strategies to combat the learning loss. But other than that, it's pretty wide open. I mean, part of it is COVID mitigation. So obviously there's still the sanitation piece, masks we're buying still, and things like that. Now, hopefully that's less of ESSER 3. Hopefully we're turning a corner here and that's not as much of the issue. And so it's really wide open as to how you do it. And we're just trying to be creative to make sure that we're addressing things that we might not have done without the pandemic, but also making sure that we're investing the resources that are making a difference to our students today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin.
No problem.
May I just add to that, Ms. Ashley, one of the conversations that a lot of superintendents and even curriculum directors, we're encouraging, or we're being encouraged, if you will, to think about those items that are those pieces we can implement or areas that are sustainable. So as you have probably heard about the fiscal cliff that some districts are going to experience very shortly because of a declining enrollment, we're being encouraged to think about those areas where whatever we decide to do, to think about sustainability in terms of what that looks like. And so when you start talking about human capital, moving forward, you would have to think about, once the dollars are gone, what would that look like moving forward, as opposed to implementing a system like the science of reading, where you are growing capacity or building capacity in your staff that could be a little more sustainable moving forward. So that's what we've been encouraged to do. But as Kevin has stated, there aren't any real parameters around other than the prescription around 20% of the dollars being for evidence-based instruction.
Right.
So with regards to that whole, that cliff, so I'm looking at the date 2023, 2024, does those dollars have to be used by that time?
Yes, they have to be claimed by September of 2024. So technically you could cheat and get something into the 24-25 school year if you did it right away. But for the most part, it is usually these programs have a 1-year lifespan, but ESSER 2 was given a 2-year window, and ESSER 3 was given a 3-year window because of when they were issued. So at the bottom, I think at the bottom, I note that ESSER 2 funds are available through September of 2023 and ESSER 3 is through September of 2024.
Thank you.
And that is an important point that Dr. Brown brought up, is that really you don't want to use one-time funding for ongoing support. So that's the challenge when you're talking about like staff compensation. If you're looking at a stipend or a bonus, that's one thing. If you're looking for something that impacts the salary grid going forward and is something that will lead into future years, that's something you have to be careful of, because if the state doesn't provide additional revenue at some point, then you do run into that fiscal cliff, and what do you end up doing? So we're being cautious about that sort of expense too. So everything we're doing right now is more targeted at this moment.
Thank you.
Kevin,
Makes a lot
Dr.
of
Brown, those are very good points. As I looked at that line where it indicates that the column 2122 with the $861,000 is the budget for the ESSER 2 funds. Will you be providing for us as you seek and receive reimbursed dollars on where those dollars are actually hitting as opposed to where they are actually budgeted? Will you come back to us with another report outlining what has been actually received?
Oh, absolutely. I think once we see how this year, I wasn't going to report on this every month because it doesn't change that quickly, but certainly as we get closer to the end of the year and as we shift, when my actual expenses are mostly claimed, I'll be able to report that. We'll be able to see what we're looking for out of ESSER 3, and then then kind of planning of how we're proposing implementing using that funding over the next couple of years, hopefully the next couple.
All right, great, Kevin. Thank you.
So I have my ideas, but can you add a bit more clarity around what social distancing is in reference to?
That was primarily plexiglass. That was one of the things with plexiglass, and then all of the communication piece. We had stickers on the floors, other kind of communication piece just to help provide social. I tried to combine some things just so it wasn't every single line item was in there, but that was what that was related to.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Kevin in relation to COVID-19 relief fund spending? All right, thanks a lot. Thanks for that update, Kevin, and being able to do that. And I wish that that our community member that actually had that question asked was actually still on here with us right now to be able to see this information.
Well, we're going through kind of a revamping of our website behind the scenes, and so once we're in a better place, I will try to have more of this information available on a business office, webpage that people will be able to use as a resource. It's a little cumbersome right now, but if anybody, wants to have a copy of this or get an update, I'm happy to, share it with anyone. So.
All right, appreciate that. All right, any other questions for Kevin? All right, thanks a lot on that one, Kevin. Okay, let's go on to I'm sorry, a second. All right, our 2022-23 budget development update.
So I've given you a several page update. I won't go through everything in detail unless you guys have specific questions, which you're welcome to, interrupt me at any point in time. I can only see a handful of you with my screen sharing. So if you need to, feel free to shout me down if you have a question that's relevant to a specific page. But just to kind of give you a sense of where we're headed, obviously, one of the first things we do in budget development is look at revenue. And the main driver of revenue is our enrollment projection. So I wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive just to figure out, we had this trend this year, and as a board member, I remember almost every year where we see this increase in enrollment over the course of the year, but then does that translate to anything the following year? And the answer is no. So as you review these graphs here, where I look at first headcount being the number of students that are actually in our seats, you do see that every September we're at one number, it goes up usually in January, but whether it goes up or down the next September is not really, there's no pattern to that. We've seen it go up and down and up and down and up and up. So I don't know whether to expect it to go down a little bit or to go up a little bit. So that's one of the challenges of trying to do an enrollment study here in Brown Deer, just because of the way that our community changes on a regular basis. And then in addition to headcount, we looked at the membership FTE, and this is the number that we use that actually drives our revenue limit. So this includes not only our headcount, it subtracts the students that open enroll in, but adds all the students that open enroll out. So we saw a big increase this year between the September and January count, and that was driven by 46 students. 20 of them were in our seats, and the others were open enrollment that were suddenly reported that they were open enrolling out of the district. So we try to model to some extent to figure out how to predict what the enrollment is going to look like. And so we use this tool from Baird that does what's known as a cohort survival method. And it looks at all of our previous data, and then it tries to, it calculates what those percentages are of students that move from one grade level to the next. One of the benefits of it's a guessing game to some extent. But one of the things you can do with the tool is you can weight certain years in certain values. And so I just wanted to show you the difference here is if I do keep the weight of every year the same, we go from 1656 to 1680 for next year, which would be an increase of 24 students. You go, oh, that's really great. But are we confident that these 2 years were really kind of aberrational compared to the rest of our history? So when I take those and drop the weight significantly down to say 20%, it obviously will kind of mutes the impact of those years and comes up with a much more conservative number of only an increase of 6 students. And I think just considering the huge increase we had, I feel more comfortable moving with a very conservative adjustment at this point, at least for next year. So I'm recommending to move forward with this headcount of 1662 for planning purposes. And again, that's our head count in the buildings. And so we'll use these numbers for staffing purposes as we kind of analyze class sizes and to make sure that we have the right number of teachers in each grade level. Then when we look at open enrollment, again, that's also pretty hard to predict. So we do know, though, that this year the board last month opted to approve no new seats. So we know that the kids that will graduate, so we know that we're going to go from 72 to 65 students. So there is an adjustment in revenue that we'll be expecting from that drop. Open enrollment out is really a challenge. And I wanted to show you the difference in what I've seen. And this is my first year doing this, and just knowing or understanding how delayed some of the reporting has been kind of shocking from a budget standpoint. But when we did our September FTE count and what we reported to the state, we had 178 students that were open enrolling out of Brown Deer. And I was celebrating because in most of the years I was on the board, we were over 200. I was thinking, this is great. This is wonderful. And with all the kids that we had in our seats, this must indicate we brought a bunch of kids back. Well, by January, our open enrollment numbers had jumped to 207. And then I just checked again last week, and now it's up to 233. So I can't explain exactly what's happening. Some of it is, there are mid-year changes. If someone moves into Brown Deer and then may still open enroll out, there are a lot of districts that take these alternate year applications. We don't. We only take applications during that the initial window that we're currently in. Of course, we have no seats. But other districts are open to taking open enrollment students all year. So it just creates a challenge because I have to basically use the lower number to judge for revenue next year, because I can't count on the 233 kids being there in the fall and being able to count on them, because as you notice here in the open enrollment out, it's the same trend. It goes up, but then it drops down. It goes up or it drops down, and this one it goes up. So it's this up and down piece of understanding what to count on for revenue purposes. So this year, again, we had this huge change between September and I say year-end FTE, but that's current right now for us. So I'm going to, again, continue to use two different numbers. I think I'm going to use the smaller number kind of averaging in as my revenue limit number. And then I have to also compensate for the expense that it's going to cost us in our equalization aid to pay the other districts for the open enrollment students. For a regular education student, it's a little over $8,000. For a special education student, it's over $13,000. And it's prorated based on the number of days they're actually in the district. So for these students who are kind of showing up late in the year, it might be half the year or a third of the year, something like that. So those numbers, the actual cost will vary per student depending on where they are or how many days they're there. So we do look at those two pieces, and unlike the revenue limit, the open enrollment number is indexed for inflation to some extent, or there is an increase built in every year. So even with the same number of students, I have like $1.8 million budgeted this year. I have to increase that to another $50,000 for next year. And then with the revenue limit loss that we will have, or the revenue loss through the loss of the open enrollment they basically add another kind of $113,000 that we're going to have to look through with our budgeting next year. Any questions so far? I kind of zipped through the enrollment piece, but I'm just trying to be as cautious and conservative in planning, so we're not thinking we have more revenue coming in. I'd rather be positively surprised in September and be able to make adjustments as to how we spend our money then.
So Kevin, so just doing the math. So you're saying from September to now, we lost 55 students from the beginning of the school year to date?
No, between September and, well, we didn't necessarily lose them. They're now in the open enrollment program. So they could have been people who moved in. If they're not here on the third Friday count, they're not in that original number. So they could have, let me qualify that. Some of the kids that showed up before I did the budget were MPS, and they were just delayed in reporting to us. So we didn't know. I mean, we had a whole bunch of MPS students that showed up in October, and it was too late to count for our budgeting count. But some of these other students could be kids who relocate to Brown Deer in January and are open enrolling back into their home district, perhaps for the rest of the year. Whether they stay open enrolled or whether they join us next year, I don't know, because I don't know what their situation is. So that's part of it. And it's just been challenging to see this number, like I said, continually climb. I was really excited that we were at 178 and now we're at 233. So it just means we have to accommodate for that going forward. So we didn't necessarily lose students. We just had more students that were Brown Deer residents. So no other questions on that? Then I'll move forward then to the revenue limit. So then we take our membership count and figure out what that looks like. So when we add in our open enrollment, we subtract out our open enrollment in, we add our open enrollment out. We do summer school and we make a few miscellaneous adjustments. I'm using the membership FTE of 1739 for this year, which is a slight increase from last year. And when you do the 3-year average, that takes our 3-year average to 1694. And again, you can see how that membership FTE has adjusted over the years. So the blue is the actual that year's number, and then the red column is the 3-year average. So right now, as you notice here, this is kind of the challenge of budgeting with the school finance formula. When you have this huge increase of students, we only get a small increase in revenue because of that 3-year average piece. So we're still experiencing an increase. We'll have an increase next year. It will probably be exaggerated a little bit because we'll lose the 2021 year off of our 3-year average and that was such a drop. So that'll be good. But the challenge is these kids were here now and we have to, obviously pay to support them, but we won't get their full revenue for another 2 years. So that's part of that challenge, but it just shows you how what we have to look at when we do plan for that. So then looking at this chart, which is similar to what you saw in the budget, again, as we've highlighted, there is at this point, no additional revenue per member that was provided in the biennial budget. So we're still at our base number of 12,244. You multiply it times our new 3-year membership average, that gives us a new revenue limit without exemptions at $20,741,000, which is a $300,000 increase, which is good. Now, the one piece I have not filled in yet, because I want to make sure I'm correct on this, is this prior year open enrollment. So what will happen is those students that we did lose or we didn't count, DPI is going to give us the opportunity for 1 year to raise the revenue limit to compensate for them. I think it's going to be about $300,000, but I don't know yet. So I'm kind of hedging my bets a little bit. So when I feel a little bit more comfortable, I'll drop a number in, but it should, increase this overall revenue. But right now I'm going with what I know for sure. And we're at $126,000 of an increase, but I'm guessing it'll probably be closer to the $400,000 range when all is said and done. So we will have some new money, but that is not a lot of new money, especially when you are considering the potential CPI increase. You're looking at potential health insurance or transportation or utilities. with inflation, you know, you could have higher single digits or double digit increases in some areas. So there isn't a lot of new money to spend. So that's where seeing how this year ends and how much ESSER money we have to see how this year ends and seeing how our budget actually reflects our expenses will be important. And then determining how much of that ESSER dollars we need to do and kind of reevaluating what we are spending on and making sure we're making the right choices for next year and the year after as well. So that's the news regarding the revenue limit. So my story to everyone is there's not a lot of additional money. So we have to figure out, you know, how to work with what we have. And then a positive note is that we are also anticipating, though, that equalization aid is going to go up considerably next year, probably more than $1 million. And that is for a couple of reasons. One is that the legislature had to add money to the formula to qualify for ESSER 3. So that was part of their agreement with the Department of Education to have that to qualify us for ESSER 3 funding. And then also our shared costs. So when we finally go through our defeasance of the $1 million this year, that's going to add into the cost that we have done this year. And that will add to our aid as well. So it's very, we're going to see a big increase. Now, again, that doesn't provide us new money, but it would mean that our tax levy would drop. Again, it would offset it directly 1-to-1. And then the board would have another decision as to, do you want to defease more debt next year? Or how do you want to address that tax levy piece? So we could be in this cycle where we could pay down, you know, large amounts of debt over the next several years in this little window we have and take advantage of that. So we'll look at that. And again, as I get closer to the summer, we'll have a better sense, and that'll be a decision you'll make when we finally set the tax levy in October. And then finally, just a real brief expense analysis. We're just going through that process, as I mentioned in my other presentations, just recognizing how the staffing is going this year is important. And so I'll have a better sense within the next 30 to 60 days, I think. We did, you know, as a reminder, we ended up with $1 million surplus last year, and that was after we paid stipends to teachers. And then we also put $250,000 into Fund 46. So I anticipate having some level of surplus, but again, with the spending, just has kind of been all over the place with staffing, especially with subbing and things like that. I want to make sure we're in a good place. So we'll take a look at that. And then, so it's all that, it's that the puzzle piece of how much money do we need to use for ESSER 3 this year? And what does that mean for next year? And that kind of sets the stage for our budget conversation for next year. And then I'm just starting to get some updating renewal costs of our larger expenses. I met with our insurance consultant today who handles our health insurance and other health lines, benefit insurances. And we reviewed our loss ratio from the past, from 2021. It's not 100% complete because December is an estimate, but it's very favorable. It's not as good as 2020, but it still looks pretty good. And so we are hopeful that we will end up with a decent renewal rate. This is NIS's they make the computation of what they think it's going to be. They still have to meet with WCA, which is our health insurance provider, to see what they want to come back with, and then the negotiating starts. So I'll have a better sense probably. I think the renewals will come out in March. So probably the next time I update you, I'll have a better sense of where we are there. And usually that's all kind of locked down by April or so. And then all the other things, like I said, we'll be looking at other expenses. And I'm starting to go through kind of line by line, something I didn't have the opportunity to do last year when I just started, but going through building budgets, going through department budgets, and trying to make sure that we have our resources allocated properly going forward. So, so that's where we'll be. So the next conversation will be a little more expense based. A lot of stuff. The budget is a big bucket of stuff to figure out. If you have any questions, though, I am happy to answer them.
Board members, questions for Kevin in relationship to this? All right.
Wonderful.
Appreciate it, Kevin.
No problem.
Off the hook
Thank
this
you.
time.
And if at any point there are questions about the budget, feel free to reach out.
Right. All right. Appreciate it, Kevin. All right. Let's go on to our next item, which is our discussion and our potential approval of the Go Right Way Transportation contract. Mr. Clinic, let's go.
Yeah, there's nothing to do. As I alluded in my weekly update, I have a meeting with Right Way tomorrow. I do I do think we are headed toward a contract renewal. I shared some numbers with board leadership 2 weeks ago. I'm just working on the language in the contract, especially regarding a potential language related to defining a breach of contract. Financially, I think it's a smart decision. The concern is the level of service and committing to multiple years when we're not sure. Obviously, this year they're struggling to meet our needs as it is. I'm kind of giving them a little bit of a pass because I think a lot of districts are in that same boat. But my expectation would be that next year they would be able to meet our expectations, and then if they can't, we would have to have that conversation, and that might give us an opportunity then to talk about leaving the contract and looking at an RFP if it was the case a year from now. But I think right now, just with the way the market is, it's a better and more predictable situation if we stick with them. They've been a good partner over the last 10 years, and certainly this last year and two has been challenging for everybody. So I'd like to try to work with them and see what we can do. So I'm working with them. I hope to have contract language to you by the March 8th meeting.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. Keep us updated, and we'll be looking for that information to come forward at our next board meeting. All right. Did anybody have any questions to Kevin about the go right way, regardless, before he gets into he shares it with us on the 8th? Yes, Ms. Peterson.
Kevin, I just wanted to make sure that discussions are included as it relates to the percentage pay if we were to ever have to go back into virtual, that we had that in the contract. I know you and I talked about it, but I don't know that we ever talked about it anymore. So I just want to make sure that that's part of your discussions.
Yes, that language is in the draft. They did provide me a draft of the contract, and there's some questions that I have on it, but that was one of the things they did include. So we do have the 70% virtual days and 55% when we're out 10 days or more. So we're just kind of fine tuning some of the other discussion points.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kevin.
And I will of course share it with the board in advance of the meeting, so you all have a chance to review it if there's anything that sticks out to you. So
Appreciate it. Any other questions for Kevin? If not, we can go ahead and move forward. Let's go on to our item F, discussion of middle school course updates.
All right, good evening again, everyone. I wanted to thank the board, the cabinet, the superintendent, and her staff for giving us this opportunity just to provide you all with some updates and just some thoughts that the middle school team has had around next year's scheduling. And so these are just some of the things that we will be going through throughout our slides. So you can go to the next slide. All right, so with our current schedule, we have our Black and Gold days for Allied Arts. Currently, each of our core content classes are 80 minutes in length, and we have 40-minute Allied Arts classes. And after we have surveyed our staff, a lot of people do feel like those Allied Arts classes were really rushed by the time students actually got into those classes. Currently, our nest time, which is kind of like our homeroom time at the beginning of the day, is 30 minutes. We use that as our SEL time, community relationship building time, announcements, and things like that. Our flex time, which is happening at the end of the day, is a 45-minute block. And right now, just the overall consensus is that that time we could really use in more productive ways. There's no recess time currently. We know that is something that a lot of people had asked for. We have noticed over the course of this school year that a lot of our students are struggling just with the length of those core content classes. We have 5 core content classrooms in 6th grade, but we do have 6 core content classrooms in 7th and 8th grade. And so I wanted to point that out because in the 6th grade unit, we have several teachers who are having to teach more than one core content. And so when we're looking at the updates, what we would like to do in the middle school for the next school year, we'll still continue to keep our Black and Gold days for Allied Arts. The new class times would be approximately 59 minutes for all classes, including the allied arts. So that will give those students who are really excelling in those allied arts just some additional opportunities within those classes while still maintaining a relatively good length of time in the core content classes as well. Next time would be 40 minutes. Everyone felt that that was a really great opportunity to get announcements, making sure students were positively prepared for the rest of the day. So we want to continue that next time. Our flex time would be transitioned into a recess time for middle school, and it would take place either before or after lunch. So during the school day, giving those students just a cognitive break during the day, which is we found to be really necessary for our middle school students. And then we'd also like to add one additional core content classroom to the 6th grade team. So each grade level would have 6 core content teachers, which means each teacher would only have to teach one subject, and they could really dive deep into that. Next slide. So our current daily schedule is in that first column. Currently, we are right along with the high school as far as their start and end times. For students, it's currently 7:40 to 3:10. That proposed time, which the high school has also mentioned, would be 7:45 to 2:55 for students. The current start and end times for teachers is currently 7 to 3:30. The proposed time for teachers would be 7:40 to 3:40. And the staff meetings and PLC times, this is where we would be really excited about next school year with really being able to extend those PLC times from right now, about 25 minutes in the morning to at least 40 minutes after the school day is over. So we would shift our meeting times from before school to after school. And on the next slide, thank you. This is just a layout of what a proposed schedule could look like on a daily basis, just in visual form for everyone to see. And one thing with our current schedule, all of our students have 2 allied arts back to back. In this proposed schedule, we'd be able to break up those allied arts times, hopefully, where students could be able to take advantage of allied arts classes throughout the school day, break up those core content times throughout the day, just to provide that variety for students. And we think that would be just a great asset for them as they're continuing their educational journey. You'll also see that recess time, like I said, mentioned before, is either before or after lunch. It would be teacher-led with structured activities for students to be involved in during that time. Next slide, thank you. So currently we have a STEM class, and we are proposing, instead of having STEM next year, we would transition that to digital literacy for 7th and 8th grade and life skills for 6th grade. The digital literacy class used to be a class offered at the high school level, but upon talking with Ms. Brown and Ms. Albers at the high school, they really felt like this class would be a great benefit for our middle school students. We know digital awareness is so important. And so being able to provide some of those skills and strategies and tools for students earlier on in their career would really help them be a lot more successful as they're navigating this whole social world and social media. So we'd be looking at doing that in 7th grade and 8th grade. For 6th graders, we have noticed that they're entering a brand new school building. Things are a lot different than the elementary school. And so we wanted to be able to provide our 6th grade students with more of a life skills class. And some of those topics that we'd be looking at providing in that class is really around confidence building, communication skills, self-advocacy, decision-making, goal setting, problem solving, conflict resolution, peer pressure, and effective study habits. We feel like if we're able to provide those skills for students as they're entering middle school, they will just have a much more successful middle school career. So that's what we're looking at, changing our STEM to those classes. Spanish right now is semester-based. And for next school year, we would still like to continue providing Spanish, but for 6th grade, it would continue to be semester-based, more of an exploratory Spanish class. And if students feel like that's something they want to continue, we would love to transition in 7th and 8th grade for that to be a 2-year program where students would have the opportunity to take the high school Spanish 1 class over that 2-year period. So if they're demonstrating, mastery and proficiency at that level, they could possibly enter high school taking Spanish 2. Currently, general music classes are year-long classes. Our proposed course for the future would be general music would be a semester-based class with different thematic units with various music electives. And you'll see that on the next slide. For performance music for 6th grade, all students will still have to choose one of those in 6th grade. And then in 7th or 8th grade, once again, they would have that option. They're getting a little bit older. They can either choose performance music for the year, or they can choose some music electives. And so on the next slide, it just kind of shows a breakdown of what that could look like for a 6th grader, 7th grader, or an 8th grader. In 6th grade, they won't have that many options. The only option they would choose would be that performance music. So that would either be their band, chorus, or orchestra. And then in 7th and 8th grade, they have a couple more electives. We did survey our allied arts teachers. And so, we've heard, they'd be willing to do a painting or drawing class for the music elective with our new music teacher. She would love to incorporate some drumline in there along with that general music elective. And between her and our orchestra teacher, they would love to also bring into the middle school some piano classes for students who may be interested in piano. So these are just some of the electives. Well, these are the electives that we would like to offer for the middle school for the upcoming school year. Our future pathways, just within the next couple of years, currently we do have 2 sections of algebra that are running in our 8th grade classes. Our goal would be to have all 8th graders taking algebra as 8th grade students so they could enter high school at the geometry level or above. And like I mentioned before, we're looking to have our 7th and 8th grade students who are interested completing that high school Spanish 1 over the course of 2 years so they could enter high school taking Spanish 2. And staffing considerations. Right now, we currently share staff between the middle and high school for art, chorus, orchestra, and tech ed. Just some needs for consideration for the upcoming school year. We would love to be able to bring on board a full-time PE teacher, which would help reduce our class sizes and offer additional sections. Same thing with our current art teacher. We would love to be able to have an art teacher full-time. He teaches just a couple of classes at the high school level right now, but once again, that would really support us in, creating our schedules that could be a little bit more flexible and offer allied arts throughout the entire school day. Currently, we have to schedule all of our allied arts. They all have to end by 1 o'clock, and some even earlier than that. Digital literacy and life skills teacher, like I mentioned before, just based upon the observed needs of our current students. 6th grade science teacher, that would be an addition. Like I mentioned before, we currently have 5 core content teachers at the 6th grade level. We would like to add that 6th core content teacher, so each teacher would be able to teach and focus on one subject area. We would love to add an additional administrative assistant. Currently, we have 1 full-time just for the middle school in our building of almost 380 students. And want to give a shout out to Ms. Brown and the high school admin assistants, but they have definitely been supporting the middle school as much as possible. So we definitely appreciate them. And of course, additional classroom space. I'll be working with Ms. Brown on that to get one of her high school classrooms. So we can add that 6th core content teacher because we just don't have any other space. And that concludes my report for now. But thank you for this opportunity, and I'll take any questions.
Board members, questions for Ms. Pitchford?
I just have one question for you, Ms. Pitchford.
Sure.
Can you tell us exactly what allied arts is?
Absolutely. I apologize about that. So allied arts, that would be our PE classes, art, tech ed, health class, all of those specials classes, if you will.
Music.
And music.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Actually, Ms. Pitcher, I actually have a question in relationship to when you talk about like the Spanish and having those 7th and 8th graders being able to take it. So when they came into the high school, they would automatically go into Spanish 2. Was that correct?
Correct.
All right. So now most colleges want students to at least have at least a minimum of 2 to 3 years of foreign language. So then would we mean that our students would have to take in high school Spanish 2, Spanish 3 in order to be able to fulfill those?
I think
Those
that's,
prerequisites?
yeah, I think that's a great question, Dr. Beadle. And I think that's something I'd love to bring back to Miss Brown in the World Languages Department. So we could just further have a discussion around that.
Right, because I was just wondering, because I love being able to do it like this or whatever have you, and having those students having to participate in those different things. Because a lot of times I think we give students their own choice to take certain stuff and they just won't do it and stuff. So sometimes you just kind of got to push them into it or whatever have you. And sometimes just exposing them to it and them getting involved in it, they actually really love it. So, but I really was wondering about the relationship to that Spanish part and everything and stuff. So those prerequisites for those colleges. And do we go up to Spanish 4 in the high school in our curriculums right now in high school, Ms. Brown?
We go all the way up to Spanish 5.
So Spanish 5. So for all intents and purposes, so if a student, let's say if a student in 6th grade excelled, 7th grade they excelled, 8th grade they excelled, we know they would automatically go into Spanish 2 when they got into high school. So Spanish 2 freshman year, 3, 4. So technically they could take all 4 years of Spanish then, correct?
Yes, and there is an AP Spanish course. So even though we technically do not offer it right now, either we could telepresence into another high school, or we could find a way if they wanted to take AP Spanish as well.
So, but wouldn't Spanish 5 be like AP Spanish? I mean, I think once you get over past Spanish 3, I think you're pretty much there. You know, uno momento por favor. You know what I'm saying? So yeah,
you're looking at fluency. You're looking at comprehension. You're looking at the back and forth piece. It's a lot that goes into AP part as well. But Mrs. Brown is right. We still have the opportunities for kids, regardless of how far they go in Spanish here in our school district.
Okay. Yeah, just wanted to just make sure that we keep that in the back of our minds, that for college, for college purposes and stuff like that, that we do this, and then those students are able to make sure they hit those prerequisites for college.
I have 2 comments, Ms. Pitchford, and maybe a question. I would be, I just have a concern about eliminating STEM, because I think that a lot of the components of a digital literacy course are taken care of in ELA as far as navigating the internet for research and reading, writing, technical skills, and critical thinking. So, and then I'm concerned about, since it's a middle school age, there's still that opportunity for that spark for that child within STEM. And I think that if we eliminate, that's just my thing, we may be eliminating that. And then one other thing, and it may be nothing, but when you move the teacher day to, and I've been in a situation where this happened, where it's just 5 minutes before the students arrive, it sometimes presents problems with, when we looked at diversifying teacher, different levels of teacher standards, it's just a little bit of time for a teacher to run in right before the kids, but that's neither. I'm more concerned about the STEM.
Absolutely. I appreciate those comments, Mrs. Smith. Just so I could clarify, when we were mentioning digital literacy, it would be more about online safety, students' digital footprints and what that means, using social media and media appropriately, cyberbullying, how they share digitally appropriately. One thing we've run into this school year, what we've noticed, students really not understanding like the consequences for how they're using their social media accounts and how they're navigating things online. So really, research could be a part of it, but we also want to make sure they're being safe with their online resources and digital resources as well.
Okay, well then I really would not want that to take the place of STEM. I think that's sort of, justice and responsibility. That is so very important what you're talking about. but a full course of that, I'm wondering if it could be tumbled into something else if it were going to take the place of, I just think STEM is just something that we worked up to in the district for so very long, from when we used to have our STEAM days, and then we really tried to really get the kids to find that spark in them. I wouldn't want us to dash it at middle school. And so I don't know, that's just what I'm thinking.
Let me
No,
share,
thank-
let me share.
But thank you for your presentation, I appreciate it.
Let me share, Mrs. Smith, you know, when you're thinking about STEM as well, you know, the next gen science standards is STEM. I know a lot of times people don't make those connections at times. We put STEM on like a different pedestal or a different.
Right, where when it is tumbled into the science. No, I understand,
Yeah,
but how we're implementing it, it's not. But if we were gonna beef up the science curriculum, augment, not beef up, so that it has some of the what's going on, then that would make sense. But the way we're doing it, implementing it, it is a little, I understand what you're saying in some cases, but not in our case. We're not duplicating what we're doing in science at the middle school level and what's going on in the currently. They're not. So if you merge those, it would open up a free slot, but currently we're not doing that.
I think when you look at, again, the next gen science standards, there is opportunities in our science classes to bring
Definitely, but
into the curriculum. Now, again, I agree with you. I don't disagree with you. I hear exactly what you're saying. As it pertains to how we've done STEM here in the past, it's been more project based. And in our STEM classrooms, it's been more project based. But you also have to remember those same projects can be extended to a regular science class.
No, I definitely think so. And if we wanted to do that, then I would be fine. I mean, I wouldn't have any qualms with that.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think, Mrs. Smith, if I can share too. So the curriculum purchased, you know, they have that whole engineering piece and component with the kits that they have. I think Dr. Garrison has brought back Mrs. D'Angelo Carter from Waukesha to do and CISA to do some more of that coaching. The other piece, so we've had some conversations there about making sure that those pieces are bolstered up and making sure that they understand the parts of their curriculum.
Yeah.
But then the other part is then trying to get those teachers then to then come into the makerspace. So then what we're going to be really trying hard to do is to triangulate who, you know, Miss Dolores Brown, who you saw earlier with forensics, you know, trying to really be very purposeful about those pieces that we are trying to work with. And part of her mission and is to collaborate and find very specific reasons for them to be in that space. So they're kind of, so I think that it can be a win-win. We're also looking at, you know, we do know that everything is weird now with COVID, and you know, it's hard to keep kids after school and things like that. But looking at Makerspace Club, it doesn't have to be called Makerspace Club. It could be called STEM Club. It could be called Coding Club. You know, it's all of those things. So, but additional opportunities as well. But then trying to find a way to embed those back in.
I would like to see how we are going to embed it. If we're going to dismantle one, if later we can say, okay, well, we plugged it in here and we're making sure that we have it in science. And then there is a science club that is, you know, accessible to all, I mean, you know, or Makerspace Club, whatever you call. I would like, you know, as you guys go forward, to come back and kind of tell us how that we did dismantle this, but we plugged it in, and that hesitancy piece with regard to an instructor, you know, that shouldn't be something that we noodle with it. You know, I think we probably want to be, you know, that we have to come into Makerspace. Maybe we could be a little bit more prescriptive about, so that kids have that opportunity, that there really is not, you know, wiggle room on whether or not you want to take your kids to Makerspace because we want to get this STEM piece in. So I don't know. Been there, done that. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you very much, Tryla, for that presentation. Excellent job when it comes to that, and we look forward to seeing what else you bring back to us. All right, let's go on to our next item. Let's go on to our ACT testing.
Mrs. Brown.
Ms. C. Brown.
Sorry, I was about to start talking again without unmuting. So I just wanted to update everyone that the high school, our 11th grade students, will be taking the ACT on March 8th. One change that we are making is that we will only have 11th grade students in our building the day of testing. This is not completely new to Brown Deer High School, but we thought that we were going this direction this year because we wanted to make sure we had a couple different things in place. One thing that we wanted to do is to make sure that students were comfortable in their testing environment. So we have various students who may have test anxiety, just simply do better in smaller group testing spots. So we will offer that for our 11th grade students taking the ACT. Even if they don't have, even if they're not a student with a special education identification, we will be able to offer them that accommodation of a smaller testing environment. Wanted to have a system in place that if students arrive late, because we will start testing right away at 8 o'clock in the morning, that if students arrive late, that we have multiple rooms that will start the students as they enter to ensure that students are able to test on that testing date of March 8th. And we will have extra adults that are in the larger testing room that can answer questions, make sure that students, if they're having any difficulty, because the ACT this year, we're going to take it online. That is a new format for our students, well, for some of our students. And so we wanted to make sure that we had ample adults in the room to help the students navigate how to take the test online. Also, we wanted to make sure that our students felt very welcome. We wanted everyone to be able to encourage them. And we just really wanted to focus on what is the best testing environment for our students. And this way, we don't have students maybe rushing to finish because they know that their friends are waiting for them to go to lunch or to a particular class. They won't have any other pressures or any other thoughts on their mind except for completing the ACT that day. So it's not necessarily a big change for our testing, but it is a change that we would like to kind of test out, pilot, just to make sure that we are offering our students the best testing environment.
I'll also add to the conversation that the middle school will still be in person on March the 8th. And so just to note that, yes, the 9th, 10th, and the 12th grade will be absent on that day. And then of course, middle school will still be able to come to school on March the 8th.
I forgot to also say that our students, 9, 10, and our 12th grade students, it's not a free day like, oh, I get to stay at home and rest. We will have assignments online for them. And I've also encouraged the teachers to make instructional videos about new learning. So it's not just like, oh, let's repeat what we did days ago. I really encourage the teachers to move forward in their lessons, keep the day rigorous for students to have a nice engaged day of online learning. So it's not a day off, you just don't get to come to school. It's we're going to once again pivot, as we like to say in the district, and continue our learning in a virtual environment.
All right, any questions for Ms. Brown? All right, well, you know what? I hope that the strategy that you're getting ready to use for our juniors getting ready to take this ACT, hope it bears a lot of fruit. I know that you and your team have thought a lot about this and how this might be able to help our students, and some of them with some test anxiety and some other things or whatever have you, get rid of some of those other barriers and stuff and make it a fun day for them to be able to take the test rather than being stressed out and being able to take the test. All right, thank you.
Thank you for your support.
All right. Let's go on now to our board reports, our SWSA and legislative update. Ms. Ashley, nice brief report from you.
Yes, I do have a very brief report for you, given the late hour of the evening. So I did attend the SWSA meeting, and we did get a report from representatives from Children's Hospital again around COVID. Just one really neat piece is that we have finally made it over meet the peak, and the future is bright, and I can't wait to hear what our administration is going to come back with, given some of the numbers that we're seeing to date regarding COVID. Secondly, there was a ton of legislation that was introduced, including a package of K-12 bills that Senator Darling had introduced. Some of those outcomes, I can't tell you if the outcomes, if there are any outcomes at all, just because I know that a whole bunch of stuff is being introduced now, but we should keep our eyes peeled on the news in terms of pieces of legislation regarding our K-12 education. Finally, around the SWSA, notable piece of information that came out of the meeting is that there are several business leaders and school leaders who are signing on. Dr. Kelsey Brown talked about the zero revenue increase. This letter is calling for an inflationary adjustment of $343 per pupil and a 50% increase in special education reimbursement rate. And so that is going to be an important item to kind of watch as it moves its way through the legislation. If it's okay with you, Dr. Beadle, I'd just like to move into the WASB report, the WASB report.
Go for it.
Because it is the next item on the agenda. There is not a lot to my report. I just want to put out there is there's a new school board member gathering that'll occur April 19th through the 21st. There is a campaign finance webinar that's scheduled for February 24th. And basically this webinar for people for school board clerks and the school district employee who will assist with election duties. And then finally, I think that there are the Senate passed two K-12 bills last week, actually. One that would allow firearm possession on school grounds by a person with concealed carry license. Yeah. And the other would require a referendum ballot question to include the estimated interest costs for borrowing. And both of those bills are being opposed by WASB. And that pretty much concludes my report for both the SWSA and WASB.
All right, thank you very much, Felita. I saw the same thing, and I was really wondering about that concealed carry when like parents could bring concealed, if they had concealed carry, parents could bring their, I was like, whoa, no, that's not gonna work. So hopefully cooler heads will prevail when we turn around and we do that one, because I read that one today, actually. All right, Ed Foundation report, Ms. Robinson.
So just one thing that I wanted to mention to you, one of the things that the foundation has done in prior years that we're able to do once again this year is to have a fundraising opportunity by working the concessions during regionals and sectionals at our high school. So some of those dates have, well, one of the first date was today, but then also Friday and Saturday this weekend, next Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the following weekend, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the weekend after that. I believe that the board traditionally have supported the foundation in volunteering for some of those events. So if that is something that anyone is interested in, I can forward that information to you.
Do you want people to directly get in contact with you, or you just want us to say if we're interested right now?
They can get in contact with me.
Okay. And that's to do the concession stands, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And are we hosting the regional and sectional for basketball?
The email says regional and sectionals. I don't know if that's just a catch-all or if we are hosting all of those. Mr. McGregor.
Gerald, are we?
We're hosting a regional tomorrow. The girls got pushed to tomorrow. And then the boys is next Tuesday. The Friday and Saturday ones for the girls are a no, because we're not a high enough seed. For the boys, there's some scenarios that would allow for us to possibly host on a Friday or a Saturday. But for sure with the sectionals, unless both the boys and the girls make it to the sectional semifinal for that Thursday, I will lose that game. And then the Saturday for sectional final is a for sure. Yes. So there's some scenarios out there that I can't speak to till it plays out. If that makes sense.
Perfect sense.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Robinson, for that report. And our next report is our Park and Rec report. Ms. Peterson.
Sure. Yeah, there's not a lot to report. The meeting was canceled for the month of February. I believe it was a direct result of them wanting to have our new Parks and Rec director at the next meeting. So we will be meeting in March. I did state at our last meeting that the new Park and Rec director had been hired, and her new start date was February 7th of 22, of course. Danielle Gross is her name. She worked for the Park and Recs as a manager previously and has come back now as the director. So at this point, that's all I have to report. And once we have our meeting in March, hopefully there'll be more to report at that time.
All right. Thank you very much, Anita, for that report. Let's go on to our item 7, our board planning calendar. Board members, as you know, February 26th at 9 a.m. we'll have our Board of Education retreat in the South Commons. March 8th, we'll have our special board meeting in the Commons at 6 p.m. March 9th, the Brown Athletic Booster Club meeting will be going on at 6:30. March 18th, our Professional Learning Day. So there's no school. The 22nd, our regular board meeting in the Middle School South Commons. The 28th through April 1st is spring break, so there's no school. No teachers and students are looking forward to that one right there. April 4th, school resumes. The 13th, the Athletic Boosters Club meeting again. April 15th would be Good Friday. It's a holiday, so there's no school. And so that is the rest of that for us. So let's go on to item number 8, a motion for roll call vote.
Can I add one other event for the calendar for just a reminder of the Black History program for the village this Saturday, and hopefully we will have some students submitting artwork to be a part of the competition for that. So that's something else that will happen today or on Saturday from 11 to 3 at the community center.
At the community center in our building?
No, at the Tom and Lois Dolan.
At the okay. Right there on Bradley.
Yep.
Okay. All right. And what time again is that again? From 11 to 3?
Yes.
Okay. Monica, do you know that we had students submitting? That you know of, Monica?
I can follow up, or Dr. Garrison, or I can follow up with the principals tomorrow. I know, I can't think of the young lady's name who President Montgomery appointed to lead this. The conversation I had with her that she was going to drop materials off at the buildings for the principals. I'm not sure if that occurred or not, but I'll follow up with the principals tomorrow.
And I can say she did kind of delegate that over to me
There you
the
go.
last few days. So
Okay.
I have reached out to the principals. So I'm just waiting to see if we actually got submissions or not.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you for that update, Dorothea. All right. So again, let's go to our item number 8, motion and roll call vote. Someone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion with a roll call vote to move into closed session to discuss the district administrator evaluation pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.851C.
All right. Motion has been made. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Dr. Beadle.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Peterson. Motion has been made and seconded. All right. Ms. Robinson.
All right. Beadle,
Aye.
Daniels Ashley,
Aye.
Peterson,
Aye.
Robinson, I, Smith,
Aye.
Zick,
Aye.
and Zelinski.
Aye.
All right, so we'll move into closed session at 8:46 p.m.
So what's going to happen?